to space would be Mr. Keir Starmer. And then I would tell the Galactic Empire that he was part of the Rebel Alliance and let them blow him away with the Death Star. No Brits was involved, no fingers could be pointed.
You carry on taking the medication, George. Yes, I'd send all the Labour government to space with a one-way ticket and throw in the SNP for being useless. They're all a bunch of... Oh, all right, fair enough.
One person, quite frankly, I think needs to go to space in a one-way journey is Jeremy Kyle. He goes on about his age one more time, how he's 60 this year, he was 59 last year, repetitively over the course of the weeks and months. We have to hear him, I'm 60 this year, I'm 60 this year.
Richard Tice, did you put that cheeky bugger up to that?
I'm hoping he's going to send me the invoice because that was absolutely brilliant.
Which MP would you send to space?
Although I'll get in terrible trouble if I answer that. But it's fair to say there's quite a long list.
The sad thing is about sending people into space on a one-way ticket is I don't think that we've built a spaceship big enough to take the lunatics off this planet. I mean, from the net zero loonies to the transgender loonies to the racists to the terrorists, there is just so much to the wokerati. We need some big spaceships.
Big spaceships.
Good evening. I never know how you're going to start this conversation, Jeremy.
Katy Perry went to space today, OK? Who would you send... I'd love her to say what I wanted to, but I'd never disrespect her. Who would you send to space who could never come back?
Well, I'd be happy to send Ed Miliband to space, I think.
Oh, that is an outrageous question, so I'm not even going to answer that question.
Sam Matterface, so you get the job, yeah? Come on.
No, Sam Matterface, I tell you what...
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
I'm Mark Dolan, and this is Breakfast on Talk, the home of common sense. A very big 4 hours coming up for you. A fresh headache for the Prime Minister as Sir Keir Starmer and his Labour Party crash to a new low in the polls. Will he make it to Christmas, or is he a stuffed turkey? Gobble, gobble. Is there a surprise twist in the Madeleine McCann case as British cops secretly fly to Portugal? And is Donald Trump right that we should use the military to stop the boats? Also today, this week, the Prime Minister was unable to give a clear answer as to whether Britain is still a Christian country. What do you think? Is Britain still a Christian country? Is it important, our Christian heritage? 0344 499 1000. I'll be speaking to a leading bishop who's none too pleased with Sir Keir Starmer's rather evasive answer. Now, the Prime Minister will today recognise Palestine as an official state. Is this a reward to Hamas for terrorism? And eco-entrepreneur Dale Vince is campaigning to get Israel kicked out of international football and Eurovision. He joins us on the show later. That is Dale Vince, live on the show after 9. Let me tell you, box office radio, you won't want to miss it. And folks, this is not a drill. The monologue is back. In today's Dolan Dispatch, following his state visit to the United Kingdom and having rebooted the US economy and tackled waste and wokery in British government and American government, Donald Trump. Am I the only one with Trump envy? I'll be comparing America's leadership with our own in a special edition of Dolan's Dispatch. That is at 8 o'clock. Don't miss it. Now, your opinions are my priority. Book your place on the show, 0344 499 1000, or text the word TALK and your message to 87222. We've got lots of work to do. A happy Saturday to one and all. Whatever you're up to, perhaps you're working this morning, putting in a shift. And if you are, can I thank you for your contribution to the unstoppable powerhouse that is the British economy. Perhaps you're a security guard, you're in a taxi doing a paper round. Do you still get paper rounds? Whatever you're up to, thank you very much for joining us. Of course, it could be the weekend for you. And if so, we'll set you up for a very fun couple of days off. Lots to get through. I'm Mark Dolan. Let's talk. And reacting to the front pages is a very good friend of mine. Live in the studio, former Met Police Detective Peter Bleksley. Peter, great to see you. Welcome back to Talk.
Thank you for having me.
Can I say, you look as fresh as a daisy. And it's not only because you've got good genetics, because I think your mother, isn't she in her ninth...
She's 97, my mum.
My goodness. Does it... Well, you know, when you say ninth decade, wouldn't that be her 10th decade?
It would indeed.
So that's highly impressive. And so not only do you have good genetics and you've got the work ethic from being an ex-cop, right? You're not afraid of an early start. But there's another reason why you're as fresh as a daisy, and it's because you come back from your holidays, haven't you?
Oh, yes. My wife and I just had a wonderful week in Corfu in an amazing hotel, which we didn't leave for a week.
Could this be to do with the all-inclusive package that you'd paid for?
I feel it's important to try and get value for money if you go on one of these holidays. First time I'd ever done it, and I think I got value for money.
What I want to ask you, though, is that sometimes with these all-inclusives, there's a lot of terms and conditions, and you don't get proper drinks. Do you know what I mean? You get a gin and tonic, but it's like a single gin and tonic. Did you get your value for money?
Oh, the staff were amazing. And the drinks were properly branded drinks that you'd recognise if you were having a show. And just to completely destroy my man of the people credentials, if I have any, I drank espresso martinis, pina coladas, plenty of wine, and of course, there were a few pints of beautifully chilled lager.
There you go. Well, listen, you're giving a liver a rest today. I think you're on the straight coffee, which is a very good thing because we've got a lot of work to get through today, Peter. Let's have a look at these front pages. Daily Telegraph, Starmer rewards terror, says Kemi Badenoch, as the government recognise the state of Palestine. Daily Express, so how is the one-in, one-out scheme going, Sir Keir? Labour has been ridiculed for boasting about its new migrants return deal with France, as just 3 were sent back in the first 5 days. Guardian, 2-child benefit cap is spiteful, says Minister. Daily Mail, NATO warplanes intercept Putin's jets over Estonia. Daily Mirror, Showbiz exclusive, One Direction Louis duped into £4 million fraudster's footy plot. Louis Tomlinson, who of course is one of the singers from One Direction, was duped into backing a Doncaster Rovers buyout bid by £3.7 million pension fraudsters. The 1D star unwittingly aided conmen such as Kevin Phelan by raising cash to buy the club. The scammers now face jail. Lots of people out of pocket, although, as usual, not this millionaire pop star who's laughing all the way to the bank. Weekend, MPs secretly want to kill UK state pension triple lock, but reform too toxic for Reeves. Let's start, if we can, Peter, with probably the biggest story of the weekend, which is the decision by Sir Keir Starmer to recognise the state of Palestine. Is this good news for Hamas and bad news for freedom-loving people around the world?
I think there may be a time to recognise the state of Palestine. I fully appreciate that there could be a time when that would be appropriate, but now is most definitely not that time. Because, of course, why? Hamas, who essentially rule the Gaza Strip, what would be a state of Palestine, they would essentially, if the same voting patterns were followed in the past, they would be in charge. They hold hostages. And that is utterly unforgivable. Let's rewind a few years, shall we, if we may, to when Margaret Thatcher was at the peak of her powers and she repeatedly said, "We don't negotiate with terrorists." That became a very famous phrase of hers that she used repeatedly. Of course, later on, there was negotiations with terrorists as the Good Friday Agreement came into place. And that, of course, was a wonderful thing. It's largely brought peace to the British Isles and, of course, the 6 counties of Northern Ireland. And that's a good thing. But as long as those poor people who were snatched on the 7th of October 2023 are held in hovels and tunnels and otherwise imprisoned. In other words, they are hostages. Now is most definitely not the time.
And it's not only the hostages, is it? Because Israel suffered the worst attack since the Second World War, the worst attack on Jewish people since the Holocaust itself, with over 1,000 people losing their lives, including at a peace music concert in Israel. So therefore, Israel is fighting for its very survival, given that Hamas and their stated aim is the destruction of Israel and actually the death of all Jews. So Israel are fighting a war here, and it's not the role of the British government to take sides, particularly if the enemy is a terror organisation like Hamas.
Well, I think it's very much the time for Britain to take sides, and that side should firmly be the side of Israel as they battle for their very survival. This is a fight for their lives, quite literally. And thank you for, of course, pointing out the horrors of the 7th of October. But I am going to stick with the hostages for the moment, because imagine the plight of these people. And we've heard testimony from those who have been released about the conditions that they were held in and the utter lack of humanity shown towards them. You cannot negotiate with people who regard hostage-taking as a legitimate tactic.
Have Israel gone too far in their pursuit of Hamas and their stated aim of essentially destroying Hamas unilaterally?
The history books have shown that sometimes it is not sufficient to defeat an enemy, you have to vanquish them. That was shown most clearly during the Second World War, for example, if anybody needs any finer example of that. And of course, 2 atomic bombs that had to be dropped on Japan because the enemy had to be vanquished.
And the decision to effectively flatten Dresden.
Yes, of course, by our bomber commander. Look at the stigma that surrounded Bomber Harris and Bomber Command for decades until they got their beautiful statue, which you can see in central London. Yes, unpalatable things happen in wars. Wars are ugly, horrible, revolting things. But sometimes, and I make no apology for repeating it, sometimes you have to vanquish the enemy.
Why is Starmer doing this? Why is he going to recognise a Palestinian state?
He's appeasing the left of his party, clearly, I think. I can think of no other legitimate reason for doing it at this time.
And of course, Labour long-term face a political existential threat from pro-Palestine independent parties. And there are independent MPs in the House of Commons who exist pretty much to support the idea of a Palestinian state, and they will grow in numbers at the next election. Starmer knows this.
And there may well be a time for a two-state solution. I understand that. I accept that at some point in the future that might be the arrangement. But that's a very long way away from the situation that we are faced with today.
I mean, right now, that's decades away, isn't it?
It would appear so. I don't have a calendar that stretches forward that far, to be perfectly frank with you.
Yeah.
We have to deal with the here and now.
Yeah, you'll have a few more all-inclusive trips to Corfu before that peace deal is struck, won't you? Sadly. But we all want that to happen, of course we do. And what about this? Alarming new escalation. NATO warplanes intercept Putin's jets over Estonia, Peter. Russia flew 3 fighter jets into neighbouring Estonia yesterday in a reckless and brazen attempt to intimidate the Baltic state. The powerful MiG-31 warplanes spent 12 minutes violating Estonian airspace as they conducted combat operations to test the country's defences. I mean, this is Europe proper. This is Eastern Europe. And Vladimir Putin, in no mood for peace by the looks of it.
These are allies of ours, NATO allies.
Yeah.
And this, quite frankly, is what you get when you appease aggressors. And let's just rewind, 2.5 years or so since Putin marched his troops into Ukraine, thinking that it would fall within a matter of days and he'd be parading himself around the cathedrals of Kyiv and other significant buildings as some new kind of ruler. Well, of course, he's failed manifestly in that, and there has been a dreadful amount of bloodletting ever since. What should really have happened if we had courageous politicians, which we certainly didn't have and don't have at the moment, is that a piece of paper would have been put in front of Vladimir Zelensky with a pen, and it was said, sign here and you're in NATO. And then what we could have done is sent a coalition of troops to smash Putin's troops all the way back to Moscow, which we could have done, I think, relatively effectively, efficiently and ruthlessly, and that would have put Putin back in his box. But we didn't, and look where we're at now.
Peter, I'm a bit worried that those espresso martinis have caught up with you, because are you honestly suggesting that Ukraine should be a NATO member? Isn't the threat of NATO membership the very reason why the invasion happened in the first place?
And the very reason why Putin has been appeased, and the very reason why Putin flies his jets with impunity wheresoever he wants to. This is what happens when you reward aggression. And the invasion of Ukraine was simply the invasion of a sovereign state, which has happened before. And each and every time that has happened, we've stood up to that. And we have sent troops and we've battled against it.
But Russia are a nuclear power, and that's the ace card that they hold. And that's why you can't talk tough, unfortunately, with a country and a belligerent dictator like Vladimir Putin, who we cannot be certain won't press the red button.
You can't talk tough if you're scared and if you're a coward. And I, for one, of course, given the fact that I'm not a political leader, but political leaders need to stand up to people like Putin. Need to stand up to him, to not allow him to march his troops into sovereign countries, treating them as if they were his own property.
Do you think that Donald Trump has been weak with Putin as well, then?
I think there's been a lack of political will with regards to Russia, end of. And something needs to be done, or else these kind of situations are only going to become more and more common. And of course, because Putin's been appeased, where's he going to go next?
That is the worry, isn't it? Look, we've got much more to come. Next up, a fresh headache for Sir Keir Starmer as Labour plunge further in the polls. Will he be out by Christmas? That's next.
The Muslim leaders in this country, those who are spreading and proselytizing the Muslim faith, believe they don't really need terrorism anymore to get their message across. They are doing it through the ballot box and the womb.
Exactly.
And that is an expression that was accepted by a leading Muslim member of the House of Lords. And this is the problem we face.
Yeah.
While we sit there like frogs in a saucepan, the water's boiling. In fact, I think we're already hard-boiled.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
The monologue is back in today's Dolan Dispatch following his state visit to the UK and having rebooted the US economy, tackled waste and wokery in government and ended illegal immigration. Am I the only one with Trump envy? That's at 8 a.m. And book your place on the show, 0344 499 1000, to react to all of the big stories of the day. One of which, Peter Blexley, is more bad news for this Labour government, who have plunged to 16 points in the polls, with Reform now enjoying support double that.
Indeed. And is it any surprise? Look at how this government limps from one crisis to another. And of course, in the last couple of weeks, we've had Rayner and Mandelson. And of course, it shows such a dreadful lack of judgment by Keir Starmer. I've often said that he's awful at doing politics, and he really is. I don't think he has that kind of political instincts and nous that we've seen from many other people operating in politics in recent decades.
He always seems to back the wrong horse, doesn't he? Like taking the knee after BLM, which is a photo that I think will haunt him forever. Or the decision to scrap the North Sea oil exploration and going all in with net zero, or deciding to raise taxes in the October budget, because all of that has been signed off. He's the boss, and he seems to be on the wrong end of every argument.
Yes, he just doesn't do politics very well at all. I think it blows apart any myth that he's a principled person, because I quite simply think he gets blown by the political wind of the day. And now I think we almost see him being steered by circumstances rather than having a clear ideology, a clear set of principles and a clear plan. He gets blown by the wind like a Union flag or a St George's Cross flag.
Yeah, and the problem is that his critics know that, Peter, but his own party know that too, and that's his real problem. Of course, he doesn't face the wrath of the British public for another 4 years at the next election, and at this rate, if they're that unpopular, they'll wait as long as they can before going to the public. It's the party, and it's whether or not they'll be regicide at some point, given the fact that those Labour MPs are feeling like an endangered species.
14 years on opposition benches, a very, very long time. And some of those MPs in Parliament now, of course, endured that 14 years of opposition. So, of course, they were absolutely delighted to get the reins of power after such a long wait. But one would have thought, given the time that they had in opposition, that they could have put together a bright, intelligent, credible front bench that would form a powerhouse cabinet and could drive this country in the direction that it needs to go. But they did none of the above, and consequently they are really a government that is absolutely loathed by millions.
However, it's unusual and surprising, isn't it, that Donald Trump was the man to come and save Keir Starmer's bacon this week. It was a rare good news story for the PM that he seems to have a good relationship with the leader of the free world, and Trump was quite nice about Keir Starmer. He said there's only one or two areas where we disagree. He also said that Starmer is doing a great job. Now, of course, that is Trump demonstrating the art of the deal. He's a charming man because he knows he's got to work with Starmer to pursue American interests. But it was a good news story. Does that suggest, therefore, that maybe events on the international stage could save Sir Keir Starmer? Is that his only hope now, sort of foreign glory rather than any achievements in domestic politics?
Well, then let's look at these major foreign policy issues of the day, one of which we've already touched upon. Gaza, Israel, and his decision today probably to acknowledge the state of Palestine. Again, getting the politics completely wrong, the timing's wrong. That's a catastrophic error. And of course, have we spoken today about Putin and Ukraine, the big international stories. Is he getting it right? No, he's not.
Peter, Diversity Drive gets blame as Oxbridge slips out of the UK's top 3 universities. So University of Oxford, University of Cambridge were always 1 and 2 or 2 and 1. They sort of swapped places, didn't they? But, a globally renowned pair of academic institutions. They're out of the top 3 now. And that's what happens, as I mentioned on X yesterday, which went viral with a post of mine, which is when you abandon excellence and merit, this is what happens.
I'm delighted by this story. It has a rather personal chime to it. Our youngest son, who is now 23, born of working class parents, went to a non-selective secondary school that didn't have a sixth form. You could only go there from year 7 to year 11. Our very hard-working, dedicated boy who'd failed the 11 plus, okay, went to this non-selective secondary school, got his head down and worked, and consequently got the highest ever GCSE grades attained by any pupil at that school.
That is remarkable.
He had to go to a grammar school to do his sixth form because that school didn't have a sixth form, and he got into a girls only grammar school that accepted boys into the sixth form.
Right.
Whereupon he continued his dedication to education and got 3 A stars.
That's
at A level.
extraordinary.
And guess what? Was refused entry to Oxford. So Oxford can tumble as far as they like, because they then put in a black boy with ABB, very good grades, but not what Oxford usually wants. They put him in, okay, in front of my boy, born of working class parents.
This, of course, is the student who is now in such controversy regarding the celebration of the murder of the conservative US activist Charlie Kirk. This is the incoming president of the Oxford Union that you're talking about.
Yes.
Who reportedly got ABB, which wouldn't even get you into Leeds or Manchester University these days.
Yeah.
He sails into Oxford. Go woke, go broke, as they say, Peter.
Yep, and my 3...
Go woke, go thick.
And my boy, 3 A stars. No, Oxford didn't want him.
And do you think it's because in his application he didn't tick enough boxes?
Oh, undoubtedly. I'm sure. But you see, this is what you get when you drive diversity and put that in front of academic excellence or hard work.
Where did he go in the end, your boy, if you're willing to tell me?
Nottingham.
Nottingham, which is a great university.
And he got a first.
Oh my goodness, what a boy. You can be very proud. Chip off the old block, Peter.
No. Not at all. He might have picked up a bit of a hard work ethic from his parents, but when it comes to academic excellence, that's a phrase that can never be pinned on me.
Well, I'm very, I think you're far too modest on that. How about this from Boris Johnson in the Daily Mail today, Peter? His column is always quite entertaining. I'd rather have him as a columnist than a Prime Minister, to be quite honest with you. And he's safer there where we can keep an eye on him and he's not got his hands on the levers of power. Today's youth are too scared to drive, barely drink, and many don't even have sex. And they're so super sensitive that, shockingly, some would rather a man got shot than say some things that they found offensive. He calls it the wettest generation since the flood. Do you agree?
I think there are elements of truth within what Mr. Johnson says. Certainly all the research and reliable statistics would say they're drinking less.
Yeah.
And, of course, it would also say that we've got a declining birth rate. Well, as a father of 3 sons, let me just say, kids, if you're listening, drink responsibly, but I never fathered a son sober, so I think if you have a few more drinks, you might be more likely to have more kids.
What does that tell us about Mrs. Blexley? We'll get to that, I think, on another occasion after a couple of espresso martinis. Next up, the remarkable US investment into the UK, into our artificial intelligence, which could run to hundreds of billions. Is that proof that Brexit is finally working? Plus, a new twist in the hunt for Madeleine McCann. That's next.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
So is this remarkable US investment into the British economy in regard to technology and AI proof that Brexit is finally working? Well, Andrew Neil, writing in the Daily Mail today, says if Starmer really wants Britain to succeed, he needs to give up his obsession with the EU. It's quite clear, isn't it, Peter, that in terms of the future of this country economically, America is the only show in town.
Yes, and this story links very well with something that's on the front page of the Telegraph today, whereby Rachel Reeves apparently is going to launch a review of a tech tax. And this follows pressure brought from Donald Trump on his recent trip. There is apparently a 2% levy on British revenues made through social media companies. And of course, so many of them are owned by American firms. And Trump is saying, right, have a look at that tax. This is undoubtedly part of the pressure, I think, that he's bringing to bear.
Isn't it remarkable? I mean, Donald Trump is a man that gets what he wants. He uses the leverage of the American economy and its sheer scale to bully the EU into an outstanding trade deal. Previously, goods going from America into the EU faced tariffs of around 30%. They now face tariffs of 0%. Meanwhile, America profits of 15% tariffs from EU goods into America. And yet, Ursula von der Leyen, the commissioner of the EU, said that it was a great deal. This guy is getting things done. He is absolutely storming his second term, isn't he?
Yes, because he has the Senate, of course, the House of Representatives, the Supreme Court, and I think a lot of the old school Republican guard, if I can call them that kind of kept their grip on the party during his first term as president, have stepped aside. They've realised that for the long-term benefit of the Republican Party and the nation, they need to give him a free rein. And now we're beginning to see what exactly he can achieve with that old baggage sidelined.
Well, it's remarkable, and he can dictate to the UK Chancellor of the Exchequer in regard to taxation on digital services. Such is his power, and such is the mandate he now has. We can only dream of that kind of leadership, Peter.
Oh, absolutely, and I think he's in a hurry.
Yeah.
I think he's very much in a hurry, because this will be the term that creates the Donald Trump legacy as a president. The first term was nowhere near as dynamic and as exciting.
And he was thwarted, as you say, by his own party, by parliamentary mathematics, and the fact that he didn't necessarily have the best people around him.
Yeah, and he's clearly 4 years in the political, not wilderness, but opposition, has focused his attention hugely on what he can get done in this term. He knows that this is a term when his history will be written.
Well, I spoke to someone very close to Trump and I said, what are his ambitions for this second term? And they said it's very simple. He wants to be the greatest president in history.
Well, there you go. You could never really describe President Trump as modest, could you?
No, he's got his work cut out. Ronald Reagan, Abraham Lincoln, maybe JFK. Yes. But he's got his eye on the prize, and certainly with the team around him and with a clear mandate, he appears to have momentum, which is the topic of today's Dolan's Dispatch. At 8 o'clock, I've got Trump envy, and I'll be explaining why in more detail. Peter, is there a potential new twist in the Madeleine McCann case?
Well, let's be brutally honest about this story, which has been running, of course, for over 18 years and has seen investigations by the Portuguese, the German and the Metropolitan Police.
And millions of pounds spent.
Yes, indeed. And not to mention, of course, or not to forget, all the private investigators that have stuck their head above the parapet and done investigations that they thought were going to lead to dramatic breakthroughs, but fundamentally haven't. So in that regard, it's safe to say there's been some lamentable detective work, clearly, because whoever snatched Madeleine and killed her has not stood trial yet. Yeah. So they've failed. All those investigations have failed to find the perpetrator. Of course, I'm glad to a degree that there's still some element of work being done, But speaking to a couple like the Met Police cops have done, or certainly the Sun have done, on this recent visit to Portugal, may be of some kind of interest. But, you know, there's a golden nugget of evidence out there somewhere, whether that be the testimony from a witness, whether it be a forensic breakthrough, whatsoever it may be, there is a golden nugget out there that will be that last piece of the jigsaw, shall we say, and no detective yet has found it.
That was the Sun newspaper front page. Exclusive as fiend freed. Met bid to nail Maddie suspect. Madeleine McCann detectives have secretly flown to Portugal to quiz two ex-pals of prime suspect Christian Bruckner. They spent several hours speaking to a couple who took in the German months before 3-year-old Madeleine was abducted from her Algarve holiday apartment in 2007. Bruckner was freed from prison last week. So what about this Bruckner character? Is that a solid lead, would you say?
Well, if we look at the German prosecutor, Mr. Christian Wolters, and some of the words that he's said in recent years, he's been very bullish, and he said words to the effect of, we know who did it, but we just can't prove it. Well, knowing something and proving something are two very, very different things, as any experienced detective will tell you.
Yeah.
I think Wolters was unwise. I think had that been reflected here, for example, by, say, somebody from the Crown prosecution saying that, then it would have completely scuppered any potential trial, because the defence lawyer would simply have stood up and said, these were the words of the prosecutor, my client can never get a fair trial. And I think the judge would probably have slung it out consequently. But that was in Germany. We'll have to see if ever that golden nugget, that final jigsaw piece, is found as to whether a charge can be brought. There will then be battles over jurisdiction, where should any such trial be held. But for the time being, I just have to say no detective has been good enough, competent or clever enough to come up with that evidence required.
What percentage of blame would you lay at the door of the Portuguese police?
A huge percentage, because of course what they did right from the very start was they allowed Uncle Tom Cobley and all to traipse all over the crime scene. They didn't, in the immediate aftermath of Maddie being reported missing, they did not treat that potential crime scene as they should have done. Because of course, in the 21st century, with all the advances in forensic science that we've got, crime scenes almost invariably give up their secrets. And that apartment may have done that. But of course, they all traipsed through it. And who knows what forensic evidence was damaged, destroyed, removed, we'll never know.
Is it deeply wrong that there was a finger of suspicion hovering over Madeleine McCann's parents?
I think so, because the passage of time has shown that there's no evidence to suggest they were involved in her disappearance. And of course, any really competent investigation that was handled properly from the start, and the Portuguese investigation manifestly was not, would have been able to rule them out from any such investigation conclusively. And then there wouldn't have been those years of suspicion and meddling and books being written and court cases and the whole litany.
Do you think that the Portuguese authorities tried to scapegoat Jerry and Kate McCann to cover up their own incompetence?
I think they possibly, right from the very start, didn't know what to do with this kind of inquiry.
Right.
And so when you're confronted with an investigation that might be new to you, you might not have confronted these circumstances before, then always treat it as the worst case scenario.
Yeah.
And then you can never go wrong. So set up your cordons. Don't let anybody in there. Set up an outer cordon. Set up the roadblocks. Do whatever you need to do in the aftermath of that, because you would rather your bosses came to you 6 months or 6 years down the line and said, you know what, you went a bit over the top there, rather than then coming back to you saying you didn't treat it as you should have done and we potentially lost evidence forever.
What do you consider to have been the fate of Madeleine McCann?
I'm sure she's dead, tragically. What I will say, with regards to the parents, I've been to Praia de Luz on a couple of occasions, you know, working for newspapers, giving commentary, examining the locality, the area, the resort where they stayed. I've walked that path from the front door of their apartment to where they were having dinner, the parents and their friends that night. I've walked from the back door of that apartment. I've looped it many times. I've timed it, I've paced it, I've distanced it, done all those kind of calculations. And what I can say unequivocally is where they were having dinner, their children were out of earshot and out of sight. That is neglectful, clearly, in my opinion, and a decision that they now, of course, regret today and for the rest of their lives, probably.
Briefly, Peter, do you think that the millions of taxpayers' money was justified in pursuit of this case, given, as you said earlier, the absolute horlicks that the Portuguese police made of the early investigation? Were they on a hiding to nothing?
Well, the parents beat a pass to 10 Downing Street to see Cameron, and they sat down with him and brought a lot of pressure to bear, I think, on that, and it was Cameron that really started ploughing considerable sums of money in the direction of the Metropolitan Police to start with, and I think that subsequent PMs have all been very reluctant to stand up and say enough's enough, we're putting it away. And as long as there are threads that need to be followed, of course, that has some justification.
Is it unethical, though, given the fact that there are so many unsolved cases here in the UK?
It's hugely unfair, because there are so many families out there who have had children disappear abroad, who've had children disappear in the UK, and they have not had a fraction of the money applied to those investigations.
The case is closed.
Yes, for so many people. For so many people. Real, deep, lifelong frustrations with the system, with the police, and the hurt and anguish of never knowing what happened to their child. So there most definitely is an imbalance here.
Let's have a look now at what appears to be a very concerning story in regard to South Yorkshire Police, who, as reported in the press today, had the names of some sexual abusers in Rotherham 14 years before they were convicted, and their inaction reportedly allowed more children to be abused. This according to a police watchdog report. Now, the town was rocked by scandal after the Alexis J report published in August 2014, which found at least 1,400 children, some as young as 11, had been victims of grooming gangs between 1997 and 2013. But two whistleblowers filed a complaint against senior police officers at South Yorkshire Police for failing to act on information to protect children. It appears to be the mother of all cover-ups, Peter.
Thank you very much for mentioning this hugely important story. I read the Independent Office of Police Conduct summary last night, and my blood pressure rose with each and every line. It is nothing short of an establishment whitewash, this report. It is absolutely appalling. And let me tell you what the IOPC did. And let's just remember, that organisation is hugely discredited. It's distrusted completely amongst policing circles, and it is an abysmal organisation. And while I'm talking about them, they didn't even have the courage to put the author's name to the report and the summary that they published yesterday. That's how cowardly this organisation is. They publish reports and summaries anonymously, and they're paid for out of the public purse. We have an absolute right to know who's writing these. Anyway, I digress somewhat. They investigated South Yorkshire Police following these complaints about the fact that basically senior police officers looked the other way, did nothing, and therefore allowed child rape gangs from 1999 to 2011 to continue to target, rape, kidnap, drug children.
And they had these men's names?
Yes, they did. Many of them were identified. There were intelligence packages produced saying, these are the people, they're the suspects, this is what we believe they were doing. This IOPC report, which basically kind of absolves senior officers, because what it says is that senior police officers were under pressure from Home Office guidelines or guidance about other crimes like burglary and vehicle theft, and that those crimes were being prioritised by South Yorkshire Police above these child rape gangs. They're almost giving those senior police officers, the appalling ones who allowed this abuse to continue, they're giving them a get out of jail free card. That's what the IOPC did. And it said in this summary yesterday, disgracefully and disgustingly, that they did not investigate senior officers during this investigation. That's exactly what they should have been doing. They also had the temerity in the same summary to say, we discovered no evidence of wrongdoing by those senior officers. Hang on, those two statements don't make sense. Were you investigating them or weren't you? It does not make sense. It's an establishment whitewash, and the frustration for the victims and their loved ones must be huge. Name these officers, search for the evidence. If you find it, put them on trial for misconduct in public office, because that's a particular type of crime whereby doing nothing can be a crime.
Years of abuse and thousands of victims could have been spared. It's truly shocking. And what is at the root of this? You mentioned it's an establishment whitewash, but at the heart of this, is it our old friends, political correctness and community tensions?
Well, that is with some justification as to why officers, I think, bottled it, to be perfectly frank, back in the day when they knew these offences were being committed. They didn't want to go into areas that were particularly populated by people of Pakistani origin. Again, that cowardly thing, community tensions. Oh, let's prioritise that above children being raped. And I'll just repeat that. Yeah. Prioritise that above children being raped. I cannot think of a more appalling lack of public service than a situation like this. The evidence must be out there. The evidence to justify putting these people on trial for misconduct in public office must be there. But the IOPC weren't looking for it. They bottled it. It's an establishment cover-up, whitewash, and that is why we live now in a low-trust society. Yeah. We don't trust our police, we don't trust the government, we don't trust councils, and on and on and on and on and on.
It's truly shocking. Speaking from the heart there, former Met Detective Peter Blexley, who's back in just a moment to help me answer a simple question. Is Donald Trump right that we should use the military to stop the boats? That's next.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
OK, folks, we're going to get through some of your calls in the next hour. However, for now, we've got some voice notes. And let's take a listen. What have we got here, folks? What is this voice note about? OK, Peter's son and his results. OK, oh yes, of course. So essentially, quite shocking news, which is that Oxford and Cambridge have fallen out of the top 3 or top 2 universities in the country, mainly because, in my view, that they've abandoned merit and excellence. And let's have a listen to this from someone called Elle.
I love Talk and I listen every day. I think Peter Bleksley is fantastic. I'm sorry to hear about his son. Classic case of reverse racism again. I think the youth of today, white working class, get a terrible deal. And I just hope that in the future, because they're saying about reform being for the right-wing people, it's not going to be the future younger people all joining it, and I wonder why. And he did so well with his exams. Well done.
Brilliant. Well, that was an A star for that message, Elle. Thank you for that. And Labour and the opinion polls, of course, they've record low numbers for Labour, who are tied on 16 points with the Tories. Reform on double that. This is Nick.
Morning, Mark. Nick from Loughborough. The latest opinion polls are indeed grim reading for Keir Starmer. And I believe that we've now reached the stage, or the government has reached the stage, where nothing it says or does is going to cut through with the electorate anymore. Well, yes, they might have a big majority, but it's a paper-thin majority. 80% of the electorate, 80% of the eligible electorate did not vote for the Labour Party at the last election. And I think despite their big majority, we now have a zombie government. Isn't that a shocking state of affairs? The quicker they go, the better. Have a good weekend.
Nick, thank you very much for a brilliant voice note, and Elle. And there you go. Nick, Peter Bleksley, raises the spectre of this zombie government for the next 4 years.
Yeah, I think the phrase that he used, nothing's going to cut through, I think he's absolutely hit the nail on the head there, because I think their reputation has tumbled to such depths that, quite frankly, people are just going to look the other way. When Starmer appears on people's televisions, everybody will be going, where's the remote control? We're not interested.
Definitely. And the economy, I think, is probably the most immediate concern for this government. Growth at 0%, completely flatlining for the month of July, I think it was, the figures have come in. And then you've got the debt. So they borrowed £18 billion more last month than was expected. So they don't even have the financial firepower for their leftist agenda, do they? What are they going to do? They're going to be treading water for 4 years.
No, and when the left of the party talks about social mobility, what they're basically saying is they want to make everybody as skint as each other. That's what they really want, because they have this envy. The lunatic left of the party has this real envy about anybody that's worked hard, paid off their mortgage and put a few quid away for later life, and anybody else who's done well for themselves. And we see this because the lunatic left mask drops frequently and we hear their expressions. And of course Starmer is largely in the grip of that element of his party, because once they turn against him, once that parliamentary majority starts to disappear, he's done for. He's toast. So we are going to see policies, I'm sure, in this budget that are appealing to the unhinged lunatic left fringe of the Parliamentary Labour Party.
Indeed, and the runners and the riders to replace Keir Starmer are further to the left than him, which would mean socialism 2.0 should Starmer fall. So we're in a strange position, Peter, where we're almost hoping that Starmer stays, because the alternative could be far worse.
Go onto the Labour website, OK? I've done it so you don't have to.
Thank you.
And the very first line of it is, we are a socialist party.
Yikes.
You know,
that was a word that was banned by Tony Blair under New Labour, but they've brought it back with a vengeance. Did they not get the memo that socialism doesn't work? Have they not read the history books? Peter, it was embarrassing, wasn't it, to watch Keir Starmer being lectured about illegal immigration by the leader of the free world, the President Donald Trump. Is Donald Trump right that potentially we should deploy the military to stop the boats?
Well, Border Force are not doing a great job, are they?
No.
And nor is that much lauded new department that was being set up and headed by the former senior police officer. And this is going to revolutionise it all. And we'll take back our borders and we won't let the blighters in. Nobody fell for that, did they? Not for 1 minute, because we know that nothing has changed. And reliable figures from yesterday, of course, when we had bright sunshine, very little wind and therefore calm waters, would indicate that another 1,000 or so made it to our shores. I checked the government stats just before I came on air, and they hadn't published yesterday's figures. When they do, they will make very grim reading.
And certainly Reform have talked about the idea of using the Navy in some capacity, although is that a pipe dream, given the fact that you can't imagine British warships sinking dinghies and causing casualties?
And I don't want to be blowing these people to smithereens and having their remains float in the channel. That's not what I want. But I want them stopped coming here. And if they do make it to our shores, then they will have broken Section 3 of the Immigration Act 1971, which makes it a criminal offence to come to the UK without leave to remain, and they are all breaking that law. But of course the lunatic lefties conveniently overlook that and don't want mention of it, and they use names like irregular migration. No, it's illegal, hello, so I want it stopped. And if they do insist on coming here, if the Navy can't do anything, probably because of the ECHR or the European Court on Human Rights and so on and so forth, then lock them up. Be brilliant for razor wire manufacturers and dog handlers with snarling Alsatians. Keep them in there, get them processed, boot them out.
Peter Bleksley not pulling his punches. Peter, listen, can't wait to see you again in the studio. Thank you so much for joining us and speaking with such passion about a range of really important issues. There are so many big stories to go at over the next 3 hours. Keir Starmer, shocking polls at the moment, right? Is there any way back for the PM? What would he need to do to win your support? Could he be out by Christmas? Is he going to be a stuffed turkey? We'll get to that very, very shortly. Also, we're going to have a look at that conversation that was had between the President and our Prime Minister about, is Britain still a Christian country? We'll be joined by a leading bishop who's very unhappy about Keir Starmer's rather shifty and equivocal answer to that. Plus, by the way, Strictly is back. So how many more marriages will be destroyed? We'll get some intel on that from the brilliant showbiz journalist at the Sun newspaper, Hannah Hope. And the monologue is back. Busy 3 hours. Don't go anywhere.
Five, 4, 3, 2, 1. Yay!
87222, start your message with the word talk. Who would you send to space and why?
The person I would love to send to space would be Mr. Keir Starmer. And then I would tell the Galactic Empire that he was part of the Rebel Alliance and let them blow him away with the Death Star. No Brits was involved, no fingers could be pointed.
You carry on taking the medication, George. Yes, I'd send all the Labour government to space with a one-way ticket and throw in the SNP for being useless. They're all a bunch of... Oh, all right, fair enough.
One person, quite frankly, I think needs to go to space in a one-way journey is Jeremy Kyle. He goes on about his age one more time, how he's 60 this year, he was 59 last year, repetitively over the course of the weeks and months. We have to hear him, I'm 60 this year, I'm 60 this year.
Richard Tice, did you put that cheeky bugger up to that?
I'm hoping he's going to send me the invoice because that was absolutely brilliant.
Which MP would you send to space?
Oh, no, I'll get in terrible trouble if I answer that. But it's fair to say there's quite a long list.
The sad thing is about sending people into space on a one-way ticket is I don't think that we've built a spaceship big enough to take the lunatics off this planet. I mean, from the net zero loonies to the transgender loonies to the racists to the terrorists, there is just so many to the wokerati. We need some big spaceships.
Big spaceships.
Good evening. I never know how you're going to start this conversation, Jeremy.
Katy Perry went to space today, OK? Who would you send... I'd love her to say what I wanted to, but I'd never disrespect her. Who would you send to space who could never come back?
Well, I'd be happy to send Ed Miliband to space, I think.
Oh, that is an outrageous question, so I'm not even going to answer that question.
Sam Matterface, so you get the job, yeah? Come on.
No, Sam Matterface, I tell you what, there's no.
I think David Lammy would be the person I'd want to send up in space and never come back again.
Yeah, the problem is how much would the bill be for him to munch through whatever food on the way there?
Hey, it worked.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
I'm Mark Dolan, and this is Breakfast on Talk, the home of common sense. A big 3 hours coming up, a fresh headache for the Prime Minister as Labour plunge to a new low in the polls. Will he make it to Christmas, or is he a stuffed turkey? Is Donald Trump right that we should use the military to stop the boats? We'll be joined in the studio by a top policy expert on the issue of illegal immigration with some worrying new figures that suggest the situation is getting worse, not better. And this week, the Prime Minister was unable to give a clear answer as to whether Britain is still a Christian country. We'll be speaking to a leading bishop who's none too pleased with Starmer's shifty and evasive answer. The PM will today recognise Palestine as a state. Is this a reward to Hamas and terrorism? Plus, eco-entrepreneur Dale Vince is campaigning to get Israel kicked out of international football and Eurovision. He joins us on the show. Plus, our very own Peter Cardwell joins me to discuss his new book, which is Political Animals. A big beast of broadcasting with me in the studio before 10. And this is not a drill. The monologue is back in today's Dolan Dispatch. Following his state visit to the UK and having rebooted the US economy, tackled waste and woe Korean government, and ending illegal immigration unilaterally. Am I the only one with Trump envy? I'll be comparing America's leadership with our own in a special edition of Dolan's Dispatch. That is at 8 a.m. You don't want to miss it. Now, your opinions are my priority. Book your place on the show, 0344 499 1000, or text the word TALK and your message to 87222. We've got a lot to get through. As they say, let's talk. And let's do that in the company of BBC radio legend and broadcaster Alex Dyke. Alex, top of the morning to you.
Hi, Mark. Yeah, happy Saturday.
You're a busy man. We're going to get to some big stories from tomorrow's front pages and today's front pages. But I want to ask you about last night. You were involved in a live show featuring Merrill Osmond.
I certainly was. He's in the UK to plug his biography, which is called Black Bear. And we did a show at the Millfield Theatre in London last night. Lots of teenagers from the 70s, mostly female there, still screaming.
Still throwing their knickers at him?
No, there was none of that.
Cost of living crisis.
Yeah, and also a bit of backache, I think, from the ladies in the front row. But it was a great night. He did 3 songs, 3 big hits, and talked about his life. And he came out about being abused as a teenager, which is one of the things in his book that he's talking about for the first time. It's taken him, I think he's 73 years old now, but he decided now was the right time to come out about it.
My goodness, what a brave guy and what a talented artist he is. I was listening to the Osmonds this morning on the way in, and, you know, some absolutely classic tunes there. Well, listen, let's have a look at tomorrow's front page. I keep saying tomorrow's because I'm used to doing late night TV.
I know.
It's actually today. We're in the future. Let's have a look at today's front pages. Daily Mirror, Showbiz exclusive, 1D Louis duped into £4 million fraudster's footy plot. Daily Telegraph, Starmer rewards terror, says Badenoch. Sun newspaper, Met bid to nail Maddie suspect. Madeleine McCann detectives have secretly flown to Portugal to quiz 2 ex-pals of prime suspect Christian Bruckner. Daily Mail, NATO warplanes intercept Putin's jets over Estonia. iWeekend, MPs secretly want to kill UK state pension triple lock, but reform too toxic for Reeves. The Guardian, 2-child benefit cap is spiteful, says government minister. And the Daily Express. So how is the one-in, one-out scheme going, Sir Keir? The perfect headline, isn't it? Labour has been ridiculed for boasting about its new migrants' return deal with France, as just 3 were sent back in the first 5 days. And Alex Dyke, this is a huge concern to my many thousands of viewers and listeners, the issue of illegal immigration, which is getting worse, not better, under this government.
Yeah, and you wonder how bad it's got to get before it gets really bad. And Mark, you've done stand-up comedy, and I'm sure you can see, because you write comedy, 3 is funnier than 0. Isn't it?
It really is.
Because you've got something to play with there.
Correct.
Apart from just the line, well, 10,000 in, none out. But 3, there's a lot of comedy in the 3.
There is.
Isn't
It's
it?
a very specific and very pathetic number.
Yeah. And, of course, when those 3 are sent back, they can just get back on another boat. What are the chances of the same 3 people getting caught a second time? I mean, what message are we sending out?
It's a real concern. It's a major political headache. It's a big problem for the country. I cannot see how the public will tolerate 4 years more of this issue, of up to 1,000 people a day. Many people say, well, it's around 50,000 a year, which is a trivial number in the general scheme of things. In America, for example, I think it was 12 million people crossed the southern border illegally over 4 years, right? So some say it's a drop in the ocean, but 50k a year, well, that's $250,000 over a parliament.
Yeah.
And given the fact that just the hotel accommodation alone is £3 to £4 billion a year, the cost, notwithstanding issues around safety, we don't know who these people are, terror links, a different attitude to women, we've also got the sheer financial impact of this crime.
Yes, and also we've got the cultural aspect. Now, we know, whether we like it or not, there's a reason we have Chinatown and Little Italy. And when I went to live in America, I hung out with the expats. We like people who are like us, whether we're working class, middle class, upper, we gravitate to the people that we are like. We feel comfortable with those people.
And it's not about skin colour, is it? It's about a shared culture, shared values.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what it's about. But the government have not, and I blame the Tories as much as I do Labour for this, they've not thought about the difference in culture. And now we are seeing from some of these awful headlines that we're getting that most of these people that are coming over are young men of a fighting age, and these men treat their women differently. And we've seen headlines recently about this, and that is the scary thing. And I love London. I've always liked London, but me coming into London, I don't even feel as safe as I once did. I've got to be honest with you.
No, definitely. I mean, I had someone try to snatch my phone the other day. I was watching I was watching a YouTube clip of the musical Oliver. I was walking down the street. I don't know why. I'm getting to that age where I'm starting to enjoy musicals.
If I had the soundtrack of Oliver coming out of your phone, I think I would have probably snatched your phone and stuck it in
I
the
don't
bin.
know what's happened to my musical
No, but it's not funny, and so many
someone
people
tried to
say
scoop it up. And of course, that's trivial compared to what many people go through. And it's not a London-only story. You've got a breakdown in law and order and a withering away of the social contract across our major cities. And you shouldn't have to wait 10 minutes to get a sirloin steak unlocked from the plastic box at your Co-op or your Tesco, but that's the world we now live in.
I know, and I said I was on this this channel just a few weeks ago, doing some late night with Andre and Ash, and I said, in my 63 years on this planet, I've never felt as worried about the future of Britain as I feel now. I think it's getting scary out there. And when I speak to people who disagree, I'm thinking, what are you not seeing? This isn't about politics, left or right, or being in the centre. This is about common sense. What is the point of having borders if we just let everybody in? We're a laughing stock.
I mean, do you think that the Labour government will wake up and smell the coffee on this? Do you think that they might just surprise everyone and tear up the ECHR, scrap the Human Rights Act, ignore the Refugee Convention and go full reform with it? Is there any chance that Starmer will do that?
I don't think so, because I think if he was going to do that, he would have done that months and months and months ago. And the other big thing, I think, Mark, is we all talk about the 700 people who came in yesterday, or the 800 people that will come in by the end of today, whatever the numbers are. No one's talking about what about the millions that are already here. We've got to sort those. They just get lost. They just get lost in the, well, let's deal with the people. Let's try and deal with the people.
It's
that are
almost
coming in.
a red herring, isn't it?
Yeah.
The daily numbers are nearly a red herring.
Exactly.
Given those that have stayed, and the majority of whom, by the way, will receive asylum. I think that nobody that enters the country illegally should receive asylum. And what I'd like to do is prioritise our resources to help people that are fleeing from terror and from harassment and from murderous threat. But those folks are not in that category because they've left a safe country, which is France. Stay with us, please, if you can, Alex, because I've got Tony in West Sussex who's going to drop us some truth bombs. Top of the morning to you, Tony.
Yeah. Hello?
Now, Tony, welcome to Talk. Great to get your call. How long's Starmer got? Will he be a stuffed turkey by Christmas?
Well, she keeps borrowing £18 billion, £20 billion and more every month. Rachel Reeves I'm talking about.
Yeah.
26th of November, you've got the budget. I know from people that I know in the city that they are basically borderline, having had enough of her and the borrowings and the borrowings and the borrowings.
Yeah.
I think on the 26th of November it will come out that she's a busted flush. We know that already, but she will confirm it. And I think by the following Tuesday, Starmer will have to resign because the city will no longer back the Labour Party in power. And the only solution will be Starmer out, take Rachel Reeves with you and put somebody else in charge very, very rapidly. I think there's going to be a downturn in sales leading up to Christmas by the great British public because they won't have the money and they won't have the confidence to spend the money. And I just think we're going to hit a brick wall at 110 miles an hour.
Tony, don't go anywhere. Alex Dyke, your reaction to what Tony in West Sussex has had to say, which is it will be a disastrous budget, which will bring down Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves at the will, at the behest of the international bond markets.
Yeah, well, Tony sounds like a very, very intelligent, switched-on guy, and I think he's absolutely right. But if Keir Starmer is out, who's coming in next and what are they going to do? They're all under the same umbrella, and we seem to have this crazy wokeness going on. And I like the idea of woke. I think the actual idea of woke about being kind to, but the whole woke thing has been hijacked, ramped up, and I don't know what we could do, even if you got Keir Starmer out. I don't know. Obviously, I think it would be better for the country, but who's going to go in and how much better? We had this with Rishi, with the Tories, didn't we?
Well, yeah, I mean, Tony, that's a good point that Alex makes about Rishi Sunak, because, of course, in the aftermath of Liz Truss's mini budget, which sent the markets into freefall, we got Sunak and Jeremy Hunt as the double act. And OK, they weren't everyone's cup of tea, but they did rather steady the ship economically. Do Labour have the equivalent of a Sunak and Hunt option?
No, they don't. They're all incompetent. They've never been a minister before. They've never run a business. They've got absolutely no
And they're all
idea.
left-wing, Tony.
Well, absolutely. Can I just say one thing? That first hour with you and Peter Blacksley was the best hours talk radio I've heard in weeks and weeks and weeks. It was stunning.
Tony, that's very kind of you. Well, I was so happy to have Peter in the studio because he's a very experienced man and he speaks from the heart. And, you know, I'm really grateful that you were listening.
Can I just say one thing, Mark?
Go on, anything.
You were asking him all the right questions to give him the ability to give the answers that the people want to hear.
Well, listen, Tony, I appreciate that. So my question for you then is, with your rather bold prediction that Starmer won't make it to the end of the year, who is the likely replacement?
I think there might have to be a general election called because I can't see anybody in the Labour Party wanting to take over the helm because they haven't got a clue how to sort the problems. They can make their promises. I mean, potentially Wes Streeting, but certainly not Andy Burnham. He's not an MP, and he couldn't win an election up the northwest because reform would get in.
Right, so here's what what Tony says is very interesting. So let's just say a general election is called, and reform do get in, right? Are they ready to run the country? As much as I'm a big Nigel Farage fan, are they ready to run Great Britain?
All I would say to that is the Labour Party said they were ready, and look what's happened, so who cares about them? People will never vote Tory again. I certainly won't. I voted Tory for 35 years, never, ever, ever, ever again. So what's Nigel Farage got? I'll tell you what he's got. Honesty, integrity, straight talking, and people like that.
Tony, listen, I agree with you, but I just don't know whether the party are actually big enough from within to actually do the job.
Yeah, I mean, Tony, do they need 4 years to tool up and get ready for power?
No, because if you've got honest intentions, you're going to make a few mistakes. They won't be horrendous. Never mind the mistakes the Labour are making now. Farage will not make those massive, massive mistakes. And we'll have an honest leadership, and that's what the country wants.
An honest call. Tony, thank you for your kind words about the show and, more importantly, your contribution to this conversation. An extraordinary suggestion there from Tony in West Sussex, but I think not impossible that this could befall this Labour government, which is a collapse of the Labour front bench in the aftermath of Rachel Reeves' November budget. Just how bad could things go? Is Sir Keir Starmer on his way out of number 10? More on this next.
mean, these backbenchers who don't want to, stop giving anybody benefits because it might be bad for them. I mean, basically, much of this borrowing is presumably being spent just to pay back interest on previous borrowing.
That's right. We're borrowing to pay the interest and to pay ever higher public sector pay rises, which is one of the main reasons that inflation is stubbornly high at 3.8%. That's what's worrying the Bank of England's Monetary Policy Committee. So we're in a doom loop.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Now, a fascinating call there from Tony, who has suggested that Rachel Reeves' budget in November could go so badly that she and Starmer could be forced to resign before Christmas. Should there be a snap election if the economy implodes, which it's currently absolutely tipped to do? 03444991000. And that's the thing, of course. It was that former Prime Minister that said, events, dear boy, events, Alex Dyke. Yes. And an economic crash would be an absolutely defining moment politically for this country, and it would see the end of Starmer, wouldn't it?
Well, I'm sure it would, but I can't see how the Labour can do 4 years under Keir Starmer. But everywhere I go, people I know are saying it's expensive. It's too expensive to go out and eat. I went and got my car serviced. It cost an absolute fortune. Yeah. I went to put some diesel in the car and I couldn't believe how much it was. Or getting the kids' school uniforms as the children have gone back to school in September. Everybody is saying it. When I say everybody that I know, I'm not talking about people on the breadline. I know people on the breadline, but I'm talking about middle-class families who now cannot afford private education for their children either because of the VAT that's gone on the school fees. All of these people are feeling the pinch, even the upper middle classes. So it's all very well us talking about some economical crash. I think we're kind of half in it and wading around in it waist deep.
Well, he's between a rock and a hard place. He's got the boats and then he's got the economy in free fall. Those are two big political headaches, and he's got a party on those backbenchers that don't like him and don't support him. I mean, if you look at this headline in The Guardian today, 2-child benefit cap is spiteful, says minister. So this is a government minister speaking out about a government policy. They're like rats fighting in a sack, aren't they? Also, some MPs want to scrap the state pension triple lock. And if Rachel Reeves does that, then there will be all-out war.
But you've reminded me, going back to what we were talking about, Mark, before the break, that if a general election was called and Reform get in, I personally think it's too early for them. But what about all the espionage within Parliament that they would just... It's a bit like the Trump thing. They would just be biting at him all the time to try and trip him up, to make it hard for him to make a change. If Nigel gets in, I just think the knives will really be out in Parliament, don't you?
I do. I think that is the real risk. There are a couple of other stories floating around, by the way. Strictly returns tonight.
Yes.
And it is more or less the biggest show on TV, isn't it? And notwithstanding the scandal and all of the love intrigue and the destroyed marriages, it's a show that people watch. It's a show that people still love.
Yeah, I don't get it. I think it's a brilliantly produced programme. It's been on for years and years and years and years. It's like a conveyor belt to me. I don't know anyone in it apart from, I say this every year in a grumpy way, there's Stephen Dennis, who was Paul Robinson, the baddie in Neighbours all those years ago. This is on The Sun. It's a double-page spread, pages 12 and 13. And Ross King who's an ITV Hollywood correspondent, or he was. I think, why are you coming back from Hollywood? You're living in Hollywood. Why are you coming back to go on Strictly? But I don't know any of the people. I can't get excited.
No, I don't. Never heard of George Clark or Chris Robshaw, Ellie Goldstein. No, I'm struggling. But listen, good luck to them. People will still watch. And the curse of Strictly hovers over all of them, doesn't it? Why do they always seem to wind up having affairs with their dancers? What's that all about?
Why do politicians make so many stupid mistakes and get caught out in these same kind of situations? I don't know.
Is it the long rehearsals and all that tactility, you know, the tango and all of that?
You hear
the cha-cha?
Yeah, you hear it a lot with actors, don't you? You actually bond. You get very, very close over maybe 6 to 9 months.
Yeah. And skin-on-skin contact. Yeah. A bit like you and me this morning.
Exactly. But by the way, I'm not responsible for your sleeve.
No, now listen, I need to... If anyone watches on YouTube, because of course we're on the radio, we're in-app, and we are on TV as well, and I have got a white patch on my elbow, and that is because, rather foolishly, I had a protein shake in my bag. Wait, folks, forget about the cost of living crisis, okay? Illegal immigration, inflation. I've destroyed my suit because I have got my protein goals, which involves drinking a protein shake every day. It opened in my bag, and I now look like a tramp, frankly, and it's a disgrace. I'd like to apologise for anyone watching for my rather stained sleeve. I promise you, it is protein shake and nothing more suspicious than that. So there we are. But listen, it will happen, Strictly. Thomas Skinner is appearing on the show, and he is well known because he's very big on social media, and of course he was in The Apprentice. He's a Cockney lad, he's very down to earth, a hard-working entrepreneur, salt of the earth, if you like. I know Thomas is a really good guy. But he was exposed as having had an affair with somebody literally days after his wedding. And he gave an interview with The Sun saying, like, it was a terrible misjudgment, it was a terrible mistake. This is the problem with going on these reality shows, is that Fleet Street will investigate your past.
Absolutely. As soon as you become a reality TV star, they start digging. But why are we worried about people having affairs? We're human. It happens. I can't see it as being big news. It's gossip, but it's not news. And you and I, probably half our friends have had affairs.
Yeah, well, definitely. We're in the media. There are an awful lot of very dodgy characters in our circles, aren't they? They're not moral and upstanding like you and I. No. Speaking, by the way, of relationships and marriages, so Noel Gallagher, obviously one of the biggest rock stars in the world, is there a rumour that he's going to hook up with his ex-missus, Meg Matthews?
Well, this is, Mark, this is the Daily Mail, page 15. Intriguing hint that from Meg that she and Noel are closer than ever. So they had a nasty divorce, a celebrity divorce. I think it was about 24 years ago. It was a £20 million split from Noel's second wife, Sarah McDonald. I don't know how much the one for Meg would have cost him, but apparently she's tweeted, or she's put on Instagram, that their relationship has gone full circle. So this could be a second Oasis reunion within 12 months.
That's a great way of putting it. What do you think about that? You're married, it doesn't work out, you divorce. Years later, you rekindle the romance. And does it work to go back? Can you ever go back?
Well, I don't know. I've not been there. I am very, very good friends with my ex-wife and her husband. In fact, I'm so close to my ex-wife and her husband, I call him my husband-in-law.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
That sounds very convenient.
And I like that. And I remember when we were getting friendly again, after quite a nasty split-up, which was all my fault, I remember saying to my, we're really close again, and someone saying, it's a bit American, isn't it? I said, I don't care. It's great for the kids. It's great for us. So I say good on them for getting close again.
Definitely. Sir Alex Ferguson in the news.
Yes.
What's he got to say?
Fergie's brother is suffering from dementia, and Sir Alex is saying that. So this is in a couple of papers today. It's in the Daily Star, page 11. That's one of them. He says that he's opened up about his dementia fears, and is now sharing with everybody that he sings a lot, and he does crosswords, and he's out there spending more time supporting dementia charities because his younger brother Martin is battling the condition. He says, I do a lot of crosswords and I sing a lot. I think it's good for me. So good for him, because you've got to keep the brain active. My father, we lost my father this year to dementia, and I remember just a few years ago he was always doing those wordles and just trying to keep his brain as supple as he could, and I'm sure it did him some good.
Definitely, dementia is becoming an epidemic, really, isn't it?
Sure.
And it's affecting more and more people of a younger age. So,
which is strange, because one of the reasons we thought we had a lot of dementia in the UK was because people were living longer.
Yeah.
So, but now we're finding out that a lot of younger people. But of course, you know, Fergie, Dennis Law, and I include my father in this, they were footballers. They were heading the ball all the time. Of course. I'm not saying anything's been proved, but...
No, and then the boozing is a factor too, isn't it? We know Sir Alex Ferguson enjoys a glass of red wine, and there's definitely a link between alcohol consumption and dementia. Yeah. I mean, this is always the delicate balance. It's the weekend, isn't it? It's Saturday, and some people will be out drinking tonight. I enjoy a beer myself, but you do wonder about the long-term consequences.
Yeah, and when you're young, you don't worry about smoking, do you? Or drinking, or taking drugs, or covering your body in tattoos, because...
Speak for yourself, Alex. I'll tell you, I enjoy my life. I haven't just got a dirty sleeve. Alex, such a thrill to have you in the studio. Will you come back and see us soon?
I'd love to, Mark. Thank you.
My thanks to you, a legendary BBC radio presenter, Alex Dyke, who will return forthwith, no doubt. Got more front pages for you next. And you might have noticed this week that in the company of the leader of the free world, Donald Trump, Sir Keir Starmer wasn't able to directly answer the question, is Britain still a Christian country? Well, we've got a top bishop who has an answer to that next.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Listen, we're taking your calls, 0344 499 1000. A very bold prediction from a caller called Tony, who said that the budget could go so badly in November it will spark a general election. Let me know your thoughts on that, 0344 499 1000. Does Britain need an emergency general election, or at the very least, a change in Prime Minister? And now, speaking of Prime Ministers, Sir Keir Starmer was in the company of Donald Trump on his second official state visit to the UK. And one journalist asked the Prime Minister, is Britain still a Christian country? A question that the PM was unable to answer directly. So let's get some help with this. Is Britain still a Christian country? And if so, why is that important? Let's get the views of Bishop Kai H. Dewar, FSHC. Bishop Kyrene H. Dewar, welcome to the Mark Dolan Show on Talk. How are you, sir?
I'm very good, and grace and peace be with you this morning, Mark.
Well, look, thank you for your good wishes. Were you surprised by Sir Keir Starmer's rather evasive answer to the question, is Britain still a Christian country?
Well, had it been his first week as Prime Minister, I probably would have said yes. But having watched the last 14 months, then no, not at all, because it seems that our current Prime Minister has a real problem answering any question posed at him directly or truthfully, I would say.
Is Britain still a Christian country?
I think morally and ethically we are in what I would call a post-Christian period. But fundamentally, at our very heart and at our core, I would argue that we are still a Christian country. And as a result of what is happening amongst people of everyday walks of life, we are seeing a revival of Christian values and Christian morality within our society, and a move back towards the Christian heritage that we've enjoyed for hundreds and hundreds of years.
Why do you think our Christian heritage has been diluted so readily in recent years?
Because we've seen the rise of more secularist policies and governments. We've seen the state legislate the church out of its moral position within society. And when I see people like the secular humanists arguing that there must be a separation of church and state, it is the church of Jesus Christ, particularly when we look at the church established under law, the Church of England, that has helped shape and structure our laws, our society, our morality and ethics as a people for hundreds and hundreds of years. And I find it laughable, if I'm honest, when I look at organizations like secular humanism in general that want to remove the church from the state, yet when you look at the principles of morality, they're all borrowed from the church, with the exception of a few for the promotion of rights that the church fundamentally opposes. So everything within society is based upon the Christian heritage that we have, based upon the Christian values. And we are seeing successive governments. I've locked horns with this government. I've locked horns with the previous Tory government. I've locked horns with Blair and Brown's Labour over the way in which successive governments are trying to actively remove the church and the Christian heritage from our society, and yet still promote a religious agenda of faiths not of our Christian heritage.
Well, indeed, how much of the loss of our Christianity is as a result of competing religions?
I think I think there's a balance between the two. I'm not one of the believers that says we shouldn't know about anything about any other faith, because I think that's ridiculous. But we should not have a faith that is, for example, coming to this country with radicalists have an agenda of completely replacing our entire way of life. I'm not one that argues in favour of...
And there are extreme elements of Islam that are guilty of that, are there not?
Very much so, and we're seeing more and more with the rise of it, especially through the likes of social media, when you have, just in the last day or two, ISIS calling for attacks on churches and Christians in particular, attacks on Jews, when we see the pushing for the installation of Sharia law in the United Kingdom and the rise of Sharia courts that are already in existence, when you have a Home Secretary standing at the dispatch box saying that Sharia law is a fundamental part of our system. These things are completely incompatible with our culture, our heritage, our way of life. And they should not be adopted in a society that is geared towards the rights of individuals, every individual, and I will stand for every individual's rights, whether I agree with them or not, because that is the fundamental principle of our democracy in the United Kingdom. That is one of the strengths of our society. I do not believe in a religious theocracy that wishes to subjugate everybody under an extremely dangerous religious ideology.
So what are Christian values, and why is it important that we reaffirm them in the years ahead?
Christian values are the moral and ethical teachings of Jesus Christ. And we've seen through history, when you erode those, society degrades into a point of almost anarchy. When I think, look at the Epicureans of history and living life with no gate or confinement, living life as being able to do whatever you choose, whenever you choose it. And it destroyed their society. And we are getting to that when we see the rise of the number of sexual crimes against women, children, and against men. That's as a result of the degradation of our morality that's been removed by successive governments. Once we restore that moral aspect, once we have a gate and confinement within our everyday life that says this is the moral law, this is what's right, this is what's wrong, and these are lines that every single one of us can clearly see and are clearly defined, we will move back towards a moral fabric of society that upholds righteousness, truth, justice, equality for all. Whether whether I agree with your persuasions, your way of life, I will fight with everything in me for your right to have that. Doesn't mean to say that I have to agree with it, doesn't mean to say that I support it, but we're losing that. We live in a society that is so intolerant of anybody else other than your particular persuasion, your ideology, when we look especially at the extreme right and the extreme left. And we need a morality that is far more centrist, far more down the line, centered around the Christian principles and the Christian teachings that have shaped our laws, shaped our society, shaped the very fabric of who we are as a people for hundreds and hundreds of years in the United Kingdom.
Indeed, and we now have Christmas markets in Manchester that require armed cops, and that's not the hard left or the hard right, is it? That's an Islamic threat of Islamism, which is an extreme part of that religious faith.
It is, and the saddest part is people always argue, well, it's a minority of their believers. That might be true. I was reading one statistic about 18 months ago that says the minority is 15 to 25% of Muslims. That's 180 to 365 million people worldwide. That's not a small number.
And several 100,000 here.
Exactly, and sadly, because we have this unchecked flow of illegal immigration coming into the country, we don't know how many more are coming across. I liked what you made the point of earlier on to do with that, because this religious ideology is coming in as a result of people coming from fundamentalist countries as well. We cannot deny that. We cannot ignore that. And we have had 4 immigration acts since 1971 that all require anybody entering the United Kingdom illegally does not qualify to claim asylum or refuge. If they've come across a safe country, they're not legally entitled. And they're getting away with it because we have weak-willed governments that refuse to call a religion for what it is, in the fear of being labeled racist for saying anything against Islam, and using things like the European Convention on Human Rights to circumvent the laws of this country. And we see that continually in society, which leads to the degradation of where we're at today.
And of course, the vast majority of British Muslims, listeners to this show, viewers of this show, who are a very important part of our society, but the minority is a worry. According to the 2021 census, there were approximately 3.9 million Muslims in England and Wales, representing 6.5% of the population. Is the diminution of our status as a Christian country, is that part of a Britain-hating narrative, Bishop, in which we've got to be ashamed of our history and our values and our traditions?
Yes, because to me they're fundamentally linked. They're intrinsically gathered together through the fabric of our timeline of history. And we live in this age of wokeism, of cancel culture, of all of the nonsense that we see, where we're taught to despise who we are and where we came from, despise the greatness that once made this country, Great Britain, that built the United Kingdom. And the difficulty is, people need to understand that every nation has had dark points in its history. But Britain is a country that has learned from those mistakes, and we're leading the world in rectifying those mistakes when we look at slavery, for example. To keep on and on about it now, and I mean no disrespect to anybody when I say that, there is nobody alive today that has felt the oppression of the slave trade from the late 18th, early 19th century. But they act as if they were living under this mass oppression right now. We have got to wake up and actually smell the coffee for what it really is, and understand, for every single one of us, whatever walk of life you are, nobody owes you a living, nobody owes you a future. Life is what you make of it. Life, you get out of life what you put into it, and nobody should get a free ride simply because we are made to feel guilty or suppressed because of dark moments in our history, dark moments that we have learned from and we are never repeating again.
Very briefly, the clock's against us, Bishop, but I want to quote what Sir Keir Starmer said when he was asked if Britain is still a Christian country. He didn't say yes, which is what a British Prime Minister should say. We are a Christian country. He said, I was christened. That is my church, has been all my life. That is wired into our informal constitution. Of course, we celebrate many other faiths as well, and I'm really proud we are able to do so. Could you just pick apart that answer and tell us what it means, reading between the lines?
Well, I would argue that one of our dear sister Karen's Bakewell tarts is far more Christian than our Prime Minister. That I don't believe for 1 second what he says, because he does seem to favour a non-Christian religious agenda. And as he's proven for me over the last 14 months, you can tell when Sir Keir Starmer's lying because his lips are moving.
You speak with divine authority. Bishop, it's been a privilege to have you on the show. I hope we can speak again in the near future. My thanks to Bishop Kai H. Dewar, FSHC, who, let me tell you, is well worth a follow on X. He speaks with fascinating insight into a range of topics, not just faith-based, but politics, society and beyond. So, could a disastrous budget in November bring down Rachel Reeves and Sir Keir Starmer and perhaps the government? Stephen is in France. Hello, Stephen. Have you already run off to France because you're so worried about this country?
I've been worried for a long time, Mark. Anyway, good morning to you. We're in the Pyrenees. We've got lovely sunshine here at the moment and a bit of a heat wave.
Don't rub it in, Stephen.
We're very lucky. No, basically, I'm looking over at some mountains. So I'm on my way down to Spain, but all over Europe there's a problem. We live most of our time in France. We come back to the UK and Spain, and we see the difference. And the UK definitely is going downhill. I've served as a councillor. I was a prospective parliamentary candidate years ago, so I understand the political psyche. But I think there's no way these Labour MPs, and a lot of them are new, who are on 90,000 plus expenses, are going to give up their jobs. They've got 4 more years, and turkeys don't vote for Christmas.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting point. The earlier caller, I think it was Tony from London, was talking about it. He was saying that the budget will be disastrous. I'm pretty certain it will. The markets are heading towards 5% on 10-year gilts, which means to say that is crisis point. We're probably already past that. And so the international markets will balk at lending. The Labour Party won't make any cuts. And so you're going to get an economic crisis, a sterling crisis. But I don't think they're going to... Starmer might resign, but they'll have a caretaker leader in place. And we'll just have to soldier on.
Stephen, you're lucky being in France. Thank you so much for your call. 0344 499 1000. Next up, shocking new statistics about the numbers that cross the channel next. That is breaking news. Don't go anywhere.
that summit in Alaska that Trump had with Putin looks not to achieve very much. Putin seems not to have been deflected an inch from his course. So Trump will be talking to Trump about whether he thinks there is actually any chance of Putin agreeing to a ceasefire and some sort of negotiation on a peace deal. And I guess Trump may be saying, well, what do you think about secondary tariffs on China and India? And I don't know, but you guys will find out in the media soon enough quite what position the British are going to take on that.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Am I the only one with Trump envy? Telling our Prime Minister how we should be running the country, and of course he's absolutely right. That is the Dolan Dispatch at 8 a.m. in just 10 minutes' time. The monologue is back. You don't want to miss it. But next up, breaking news, a developing story. It's been reported that 1,061 illegal migrants crossed the Channel yesterday. Labour's plans to stop the boats and smash the gangs is clearly not working. Let's get a reaction from Lucy White, who is a public policy specialist. Lucy, it's a shocking number.
Hi, good morning. Yes,
Hi.
I mean, we would say it's a shocking number, but in terms of recent history, it's just your day-to-day news at the moment. It's we've just become so used to it that it's not even shocking anymore.
Exactly right. And it is a large number of people. Many try to trivialise this number, saying that even if it's 50,000 in a year, that's a drop in the ocean compared to legal net migration. Is that a persuasive argument that these numbers are very low in relative terms?
I mean, yes, in terms of relative terms. So if you look at 2023, we had sort of net migration of about almost 1 million migrants. So yes, it is small. The key difference here is that these are unvetted men. So they're young men entering the country. We don't know who they are. And we've just seen this story of an Egyptian man who was staying at the Hilton Hotel, who raped a woman in Hyde Park, and he's also a convicted Islamist terrorist. You couldn't make it up. So he's an illegal migrant staying in the Hilton Hotel, paid for by taxpayers' money. He raped a woman in Hyde Park, which is one of the most prestigious royal parks we have in the UK. You couldn't put those four parts in a sentence normally. And yet the issue is this is just happening every single day. None of them should be in the UK. The minute they arrive to the UK on the shore and they're illegal dinghy crossings on the boats, they should be detained and deported. They shouldn't even step foot on British soil. It's an absolute disgrace. And what's worse is that every single illegal migrant that enters and commits a rape or a crime, that's a rape or a crime that should have been avoided.
Correct. 100% agree with you. We know that Sir Keir Starmer is very keen on power. He was very focused on achieving power by replacing Jeremy Corbyn as Labour leader. And days after that successful campaign to lead the Labour Party, he ditched all of the Corbynite policies that he was previously propounding. Do you think we might see another significant U-turn from Starmer in regard to the boats? Could he think the unthinkable and tear up the ECHR, get rid of the Human Rights Act and look again at the Refugee Convention?
Well, to be honest with you, I think Starmer has no other choice. If he doesn't tear up the ECHR, repeal the Human Rights Act, he knows that he's going to lose the general election of 2029, because the number one pressing issue among British voters right now is migration, be it legal or illegal. So if Keir Starmer doesn't do anything, he knows that he's guaranteed to lose that general election. And we already know that the Reform Party under Nigel Farage is preparing for government for 2029, and Keir Starmer is terrified about this. So unless Keir Starmer goes back to the ECHR, which, by the way, was created in 1950 to protect the member states of the Council of Europe, which basically means the ECHR was created to protect Europe. not to every single country in the world, which is so ludicrous. So we know that the ECHR is being taken advantage of by typically young men from Africa or from the Middle East to come into the UK. So Keir Starmer has pressure to withdraw from the ECHR because he knows that he's going to lose the general election. What's also interesting to think about is if you look at Africa as a continent, for example, Africa has a population of 1.3 billion people and growing. There's no way that everyone from Africa can simply come to the UK, dissolve across the population and integrate. So the solution is not for migrants to come to the UK or to Europe, but the solution is for migrants to fix their home countries. If you look at African countries, they've had independence since the 1960s. So they've had 65 years of independence and of the UK and other nations given international aid. The reason why that doesn't work and why these countries remain in poverty is because you cannot throw money at a problem and expect it to be fixed. These institutions are corrupt at the heart. They're run by dictators who have been there for about 40 years. And so the solution is not for them to migrate to the UK or Europe. It's for them to fix the problems in their home country and to stay there.
Most definitely. Lucy, some suggest that reforms plans to stop the boats are naive and unworkable. Can anyone stop illegal immigration?
Yeah, of course. I mean, even like President Trump came here on his royal visit and he said we should be using the Navy, the military. And of course that is correct because the number one duty of our military is to protect our country, is to protect our borders. We are being invaded and not a single shot has been fired, yet our country is being invaded. And so of course we have to send the military and the Navy. What's interesting is if you go back to 2013, the little island off the coast of Italy is called Lampedusa. That back in 2013, the Italian government launched an operation called Mar Nostrum, which means our sea. And that basically allowed the Italian to send out the Coast Guard, not to stop the illegal boats, ironically, but to help bring them to Italy. And so that was 12 years ago. And we're seeing that replicated in the UK. We're sending out support, but not to stop the boats, but to bring them to the UK. And this is ridiculous. That's an incentive, a pull factor to bring them into Europe, into the UK. And it all originates from Italy in 2013 in Lampedusa. So we need to reverse all of these policies. We need to stop incentivizing them to come to Europe. And of course, we need to send out the Navy and the military to stop it, not to aid it, but to stop this.
Lucy, what a treat to have you on the show. We'll catch up soon. Lucy White, a public policy specialist, next up in the Dolan Dispatch. Trump stopped illegal immigration. Why can't Starmer? That's next.
Five, 4, 3, 2, 1. Yay!
8722, start your message with the word talk. Who would you send to space and why?
The person I would love to send to space would be Mr. Keir Starmer. And then I would tell the Galactic Empire that he was part of the Rebel Alliance and let them blow him away with the Death Star. No Brits was involved, no fingers could be pointed.
You carry on taking the medication, George. Yes, I'd send all the Labour government to space with a one-way ticket and throw in the SNP for being useless. They're all a bunch of... Oh, all right, fair enough.
One person, quite frankly, I think needs to go to space in a one-way journey is Jeremy Kyle. He goes on about his age one more time, how he's 60 this year, he was 59 last year, repetitively over the course of the weeks and months. We have to hear him, I'm 60 this year, I'm 60 this year.
Richard Tice, did you put that cheeky bugger up to that?
I'm hoping he's going to send me the invoice because that was absolutely brilliant.
Which MP would you send to space?
Oh, no, I'll get in terrible trouble if I answer that. But it's fair to say there's quite a long list.
The sad thing is about sending people into space on a one-way ticket is I don't think that we've built a spaceship big enough to take the lunatics off this planet. I mean, from the net zero loonies to the transgender loonies to the racists to the terrorists, there is just so much to the wokerati. We need some big spaceships.
Big spaceships.
Good evening. I never know how you're going to start this conversation, Jeremy.
Katy Perry went to space today, OK? Who would you send... I'd love her to say what I wanted to, but I'd never disrespect her. Who would you send to space who could never come back?
Well, I'd be happy to send Ed Miliband to space, I think.
Oh, that is an outrageous question, so I'm not even going to answer that question.
Sam Matterface, so you get the job, yeah? Come on.
No, Sam Matterface, I tell you what, there's no.
I think David Lammy would be the person I'd want to send up in space and never come back again.
Yeah, the problem is how much would the bill be for him to munch through whatever food on the way there?
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
I'm Mark Dolan, and this is Breakfast on Talk, the home of common sense. A very big 2 hours coming up. Happy Saturday, one and all. A fresh headache for the Prime Minister as Sir Keir Starmer's Labour Party plunges to a new low in the polls. Will Starmer make it to Christmas, or is he a stuffed turkey? We'll bring analysis. And is Donald Trump right that we should use military forces to stop the boats? And the PM today will recognise Palestine as a state. Is this a reward to Hamas for terrorism? Plus, the controversial eco-entrepreneur Dale Vince is campaigning to get Israel kicked out of Eurovision. He joins us on the show. Plus, our very own Peter Cardwell joins me to discuss his new book, Political Animals. And your opinions are my priority. Book your place on the show, 0344 499 1000. And you can text the word TALK to 87222. So we are on Talk. Let's do just that. This is Mark Dolan setting you up for a very big weekend. And as always, at this time of the show, it's time for the Dolan Dispatch. Raised Roman Catholic, I was always taught that it's wrong to be jealous and to desire things that belong to others. Luckily, I'm not the jealous type, and I've never coveted my neighbour's ass, even though it is an impressive ass. But after the second state visit by the current US president to the United Kingdom, I'm going to tell you that I've got Trump envy. Why does it fall to the leader of the free world and the head of government of a different country to tell our Prime Minister what we need to do and where we are going so horribly wrong? The contrast between those two men couldn't have been stronger. Trump, feisty, fearless, spraying out common sense, and a man, by the way, growing more orange by the day. Starmer, pale by comparison, and didn't seem real up there on the podium next to the president. Starmer is not so much a human being as a walking avatar, a human manifestation of ChatGPT software gone horribly wrong. And as Trump offered smart and bold remedies for Britain's many ills, the PM just stood there, nodding inanely, like the dog from the Churchill insurance ads, that being the only Churchill Starmer could be compared to. It was the Donald who pointed out that we have extraordinarily lavish energy resources in the North Sea and that we should drill, baby, drill. Starmer didn't know where to look at that point, fully aware that his Energy Secretary, Red Ed Miliband, has unilaterally shut down the market for North Sea oil exploration. Why did it fall upon a foreign leader to inform our egregiously weak and incompetent Prime Minister that windmills are a useless disaster? Why did it take this maverick US president, whose skin grows more orange by the day, to point out the provable fact that mass unchecked immigration destroys a country from within. What a profound and insightful thing for Trump to say, a man who is often derided for his glib one-liners. Yes, folks, I've got Trump envy. Of course he's a narcissist and self-obsessed. Well, show me a politician that isn't. He exaggerates and he has, let's be honest, an intermittent relationship with the truth. Again, show me a politician that does not. But at least Donald's imperfections are out there in the open. They're priced in. We know what we're dealing with when people take a view on Donald Trump. Like my excellent dentist said recently as he drilled into one of my rear molars, he described Donald Trump rather creatively as the honest liar. And I thought that was very appropriate, as opposed to the dishonest liars that we're surrounded by in this awful Labour government. Now, if you separate actual policy from the headlines and the explosive remarks made by Donald Trump, he's actually smashing it in government. He is doing an extraordinary job. In a matter of weeks, he has massively improved the terms by which America trades with the rest of the world. The tariffs have been a triumph which will enrich America, bring manufacturing back to the United States, and create a fairer deal for his country. Donald Trump has closed the US border. He has unilaterally and comprehensively ended illegal immigration, which saw upwards of 12 million undocumented people enter America through the southern border over the last 4 years. Why does it fall upon Donald Trump to tell our Prime Minister that we should use any means possible, including our military, to stop the boats? An idea rather arrogantly laughed off by a Labour government minister the following day. How is policing our borders not the best use of our military personnel? Is that not the very essence of what they're there for? Donald Trump has got inflation under control. He's reduced taxes, not just for the rich, but for everyone, which will generate a tsunami of growth in the United States, the like of which we haven't seen in a generation. The cost of energy in America has fallen through the floor as the US tap into their own natural resources. It goes on and on and on. It is triumph after triumph after triumph. And look at the state of Britain. Here we are in the UK, blindly pursuing the economic, strategically and national security suicide of net zero. And we have a government on record as saying that people who enter the country illegally have a higher legal status than our own citizens. That was Bridget Phillipson on Sky News. We have a government which has reignited inflation, borrowed far more than expected at a cost far higher than under Liz Truss. They've reawoken the old enemy of unemployment and decimated growth with the national insurance tax raid, unaffordable pay rises in the public sector and crippling red tape for business via the workers' rights legislation. And don't get me started on Keir Starmer's disastrous efforts to, and I quote, smash the gangs. I'm going to smash the gangs. I'm Keir Starmer. I'm going to smash. I don't know what a woman is, but I'm going to smash the gangs. Do me a favour. If only it was 1 in, 1 out at number 10. And I know who I'd be putting in if he wasn't so busy running America. Yes, folks, I've got Trump envy. He's not perfect. He's a lunatic. But he puts his country first. And with his war on woke and waste, he has transformed America in a short few months. Yes, the Americans are lucky. For them, under the Donald, the future's bright, the future's orange. Meanwhile, Britain sinks further into the red. Your reaction, 0344 499 1000. I make no apologies for this. I have got Trump envy, and the reason why is its policy. Yes, he's got a style which is abrasive. It's not everyone's cup of tea. I understand that. And he's not a man that's on record as being very honest much of the time. But I judge people by their actions, not their rhetorics. And he's made a huge difference to the United States. So we need a Trump figure here. But who would that Trump figure be? Is it Nigel Farage? Is he cut from the same cloth as Donald Trump? Or could Farage be another Boris figure who talks a good game, but ultimately lets down the public? Let's speak to Angela in Cyprus, because, of course, this show is completely global. Angela, welcome to the show.
Hi, nice to speak to you.
Nice. Can you understand, Angela, why I've got Trump envy?
How you got Trump envy? Yes, absolutely, I do. And I live in a country that gets on with it. I found the escape tunnel from UK to Cyprus 15 years ago because I saw the writing on the wall to be true. And I never regret it for 1 minute, because here the government, whichever government it is, seems to be interested in the people. And we have a very small population, of course, but we have been invaded in the past, of course, in Greek Cyprus. And we know what that's all about, or the government do. They protect the people in their area. And they're actually now standing at leading the EU in return rates in 2024-25. Leading the EU, this tiny little country.
Which with far fewer resources than at our disposal, and yet we watch blindly on as 1,000 people crossed the channel yesterday.
I know, it's absolutely absurd. And you know, people refer to an invasion. Well, I can refer to it as nothing less than an invasion, truly. And all the time here in Cyprus, they're upping the rules. They're increasing the rules for removing people who commit crimes, returning people who overstay their visas or enter irregularly into the country. So they've got voluntary return programs. So they give people an incentive. You might not particularly agree with this, but it saves money in the long term. So they'll give a migrant between 1,000 and 1,500 euros to return to their country, which actually is much better for the economy than keeping them on island. They'll focus particularly on irregular or illegal migrants, so repatriating people who don't have legal residency. They're pushing for returns to Syria because, of course, we're only just across the water. It's nearly the equivalent of France to UK.
And Angela, how do the authorities stop the boats? Because the argument from some on the left in this country is if we deployed the Navy and you tried to turn boats around, people would die.
People actually arrive on Cyprus. They do arrive on Cyprus, but there are camps. They're actually...
do they get pocket money, a mobile phone, and can they wander around?
They don't get much. No, they don't get much. And in fact, the whole thing in Cyprus, I mean, even for local people, if you're out of work for more than 6 months, you're not going to be supported by the state unless you have a specific reason. So, you know, people do find jobs. They do work. It's just a whole different system. And in order for me to live on Cyprus, I had to go through all sorts of hoops to be allowed residency here.
And what do you make of your country of birth now in 2025, having left over a decade ago?
I'm totally dismayed, and I have family, of course, still living in UK. And what I say to them is, well, there's a house here if you need to escape. Seriously, that's how I feel. I just think it's totally out of control.
And we saw,
as I on for years.
Yes, we saw, as I mentioned in the Dolan Dispatch, Angela, that Donald Trump unilaterally stopped illegal immigration from 12 million people in 4 years to a few hundred a month, which demonstrates where there's a will, there's a way.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, in 2000, given the size of the island, 2024, Cyprus returned over 10,000 people. And in 2025, in the first 2 months, 2,610 voluntary returns. And that's compared to just 368 arrivals. So just think about that in terms of figures. 2,610 in the first 2 months deported compared to 368 arrivals. So something's going right here. And the methodology may be different to that which Trump is using. Different countries have to do different things. But seriously, Cyprus is doing something right in this regard. We're only across the water from the Middle East, and so you would expect we have more difficulties to be true. But the government are dealing with it. That's the problem. They're not frightened to stand up to the EU either.
No, and actually, I'm looking into the case of Denmark, who had their conversation about immigration 15 years ago, and parties of the left and the right are united in the fact that they do not want illegal immigration and they want very low legal net migration. And I think that, if my understanding is right, I think that Denmark processed less than 100 asylum claims in the last year, which obviously is an incredibly meagre figure compared to what we do. Many people that enter the country, the majority who cross the channel, Angela, will achieve asylum, which I think oughtn't to happen because they've come from a safe country, which is France. Before I let you go, Angela, do you think that there is anyone that can fix this? What's your view of Nigel Farage and Reform UK?
I've got mixed feelings there in that I'm all for Nigel and Reform UK and what they're aiming to do. My concern is it's the bad timing in their development as a party if they have to take over right now too soon. It's all come at the wrong time.
No, they need 4 years to tool up, don't they?
They do need some time to get really on top of their game before they have to take over. However, if it happens, it happens. We have to roll with that because I can't see the Labour government being in charge for another 4 years.
And lastly, Angela, do you think that regarding illegal immigration, that clearly it's an issue, do you think that language like calling it an invasion is too inflammatory? And do you think there's a risk that we demonise people who cross the channel who are trying to get a better life?
No, I don't think we do when we look at the profile of the people who are coming into the country. Look, before I came to Cyprus, I lived in Leicester. I had offices in Leicester. For years and years and years in Leicester, we've actually had Indian communities, Pakistani communities, and everyone's integrated and got on very well and tolerated to some extent. But I never felt unsafe. And it was a very mixed community. It's only in the last 10 to 15 years that things have come to the head the way they have with this more recent influx of migrants from African states and Syrian states. But multiculturalism is fine as long as it's slow enough for people to be able to really, truly integrate. But this mass migration is an invasion because there isn't the time for communities to cope with the influx of people that they're having to accommodate. That's
Angela,
my opinion on it.
Really lovely to take your call, and all the best to you in Cyprus and your many British relatives who are still here with the terrible weather, the questionable food and the huge problems facing this country. But fair play to you, Angela, that you're still looking out for the fate of this country, even though you've fled to Cyprus. Lucky you. Next up, should Sir Keir Starmer deploy the Navy straight away to stop the boats? And would that save his premiership? That's next.
I mean, these backbenchers who don't want to, stop giving anybody benefits because it might be bad for them. I mean, basically, much of this borrowing is presumably being spent just to pay back interest on previous borrowing.
That's right. We're borrowing to pay the interest and to pay ever higher public sector pay rises, which is one of the main reasons that inflation is stubbornly high at 3.8%. That's what's worrying the Bank of England's Monetary Policy Committee. So we're in a doom loop.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Am I the only one with Trump envy? 03444991000. I know he's not a perfect human being. He's a narcissist. He's a lunatic. But look at his policies in America. They are working. Do we need something of that ilk here? 03444991000. I'll get to your calls shortly. But first, I'm delighted to welcome in the studio Conservative councillor Matthew Goodwin-Freeman and former Labour advisor Matthew Torbett. Gentlemen, welcome to the show. And we've got the latest figures. This is breaking news if you've just joined us, which is that 1,061 people arrived in the UK yesterday via the English Channel. Matthew, this is a problem. Well, we've got two Matthews here. I know. Let me go Matthew Torbett first, because you're the incumbent, right? Labour are in power.
Oh, God.
This is a problem that won't go away for Sir Keir Starmer. Should he deploy the Navy in order to stop the boats and save his premiership?
No. I think it brings too many risks. And I think who wants to be the person in the Navy that goes out there and kills people potentially by accident and whatever else? I think there's a solution in this. I think, first of all, the deterrent here clearly isn't enough. That was always my fear and probably lots of others. So I think with yesterday's figures, we're probably at about 6,500 now in since the scheme was announced.
9,000.
And three. Oh, OK, so it's more worse apparently. Well, Peter Cardwell said 5,500 yesterday, so I don't know whose figures are where.
We got a briefing yesterday, just under 10,000.
Oh, I can't trust the Tories' briefings. Anyway, we've had thousands in since September, or since the announcement, and we've had 3 out as of this morning, I believe. It's not good enough, and the idea it can be built up and go further, I think, is maybe for the birds. I think for me, you've got to look, and people won't agree with this, but you've got to remember we're dealing with left-wing MPs as well, and realism of getting this over the line. You've got to look at offshore processing. From a security point of view, we need to know who these people are before they get here. If you enable people to be able to be processed in their own country before they flee and they cut across all these countries, or at British embassies in their country, you're dealing with the issue before it gets to the Channel. Left-wing MPs within the Labour Party that might go, oh, we don't know, go, oh, it's a safe and legal route. Great, nobody's dying in the Channel. The right of the party, or the sort of quelling the reform, is this: we're dealing with this as a national security issue and we have to know who these people are. I think that's what you've got to look at. The French actually offered it. I'm sick of saying this sort of stuff. I've been saying it for months now. The French offered it to Boris Johnson in 2021. They said, we will pay for a processing centre at Calais. You can put your own Home Office staff in it. We just think this isn't working for either of us. And unfortunately, that week there was a drowning in the Channel and Boris Johnson decided to fall out with Emmanuel Macron the week of the summit, and therefore that discussion went by the wayside. But I think you could potentially please all parties, see off a bit of a threat for reform, because you need to stop the optics of people getting in boats and crossing the Channel every day.
Well, I'm not sure about the gravity of that offer from the French, because we've paid them millions to help challenge this issue, and it's been completely resolutely unsuccessful so far. But I just don't see how the government can continue like this with these numbers coming into the country. I just think something's got to give, Matthew.
It can't carry on like this. I saw Labour MPs celebrating the fact that we had, I think it was 6 days of 0 people crossing the Channel. Well, that's all been undone now by yesterday's numbers. You know, it cannot carry on like this. As we said, this 3 out, thousands in deal is just not working as a deterrent. There was a ready-made deterrent there before July July the 4th, which actually had already reduced numbers by 33% without a flight taking off, but that decided to get scrapped on day one. I think Labour should have kept the Rwanda scheme just whilst they came up with their own policy, because it was having an impact on deterring numbers. So much so that our neighbours were saying, you know, in Ireland, we're having people come over to us. Can we deport them back to you?
The Irish
Taoiseach
it targeted the Rwanda plan as causing a massive upsurge in immigration into Ireland, illegal immigration. Was that a mistake by Starmer to scrap Rwanda, Matthew?
For me, I've spoken to people that worked in the Home Office at the time. There was only space for a few hundred people in Rwanda. Therefore, what do you do?
It was the deterrent. It was the fact that it's 33% drop between 2023 and 2024 without any flights having got on, because people were so scared that they were going to end up in Rwanda.
It was the knowledge
they stopped coming.
It was the knowledge that you could.
That's a deterrent.
It's the same reason why you don't go drink driving, because there isn't a cop on every street, but you know that there's a chance you'll get done. Yeah. And that's the same thing with illegal immigration. It's a deterrent.
For those that would have took their chance, and this is the problem, we will never know, right? This is the annoyance, because I think it maybe should have been seen to see whether it worked or not. I think there's potential to say, should Labour have brought something to the table before scrapping it and had it as a sort of backstop as such? Potentially. I just think if you'd got to a point where the accommodation in Rwanda was full, that there is no deterrent. You have to look elsewhere, which is just as expensive. So I think it had pros and cons.
Although that said, other countries were likely to come online if Rwanda had happened.
I believe so, and I am due to have a chat with the SPAD that come up with it at Tory conference in a couple of weeks to see the persuasion behind it, and if there's something Labour can maybe learn from it. I'm not yet convinced, but I'm open-minded.
Labour are looking at similar Rwanda-like schemes with Eastern European countries. You know, Keir Starmer was talking about that a couple of months ago, looking at doing similar schemes but deporting people to there. So my frustration was, if the problem was Rwanda, the choice of Rwanda, there's hundreds of other countries in the world we could maybe deal with.
And also, what's your problem with Rwanda? Is that a racist attitude to Rwanda?
The other
Who
issue...
sponsor the Arsenal football team?
It's very true. The other issue with Rwanda, people were saying, you know, was Rwanda's human rights and all these sorts of things. Germany have a Rwanda scheme. Actually, Germany are using the accommodation facilities of Rwanda that we paid for, that we paid to build. So that's a problem, because how can Germany, who are in the ECHR, able to get the Rwanda scheme off and working when we, in the ECHR, couldn't, and we think that the ECHR is the problem? I think we do need to dig deeper into that, because at the end of the day, if Germany can do it whilst being in the ECHR, then maybe leaving the ECHR isn't the silver bullet. I don't know, and that's for whatever government to sort out and find out, because it could have worked. It was working.
What's Starmer going to do? Where does this go, do you think, Matthew?
Well, I was reading this morning, the Home Office officials were actually pleasantly surprised at the pace of change Shabana Mahmood has brought. I think there's a long way to go, but they were impressed at the fact that the Eritrean that sort of put in a late appeal pretended he was a modern slave and therefore couldn't be deported at first. She said, no, we have to change the legal guidance now. We have to do it. And they said, do you know what? Priti Patel didn't do that. So, this isn't political, this is the officials going, we're not used to this sort of pace of change, which shows a sort of failing Home Office for probably the last 2 decades, really.
Home Office needs completely rebuilding.
I think I would keep an eye on potential speeches at Labour Party conference and whether Shabana chooses to lean into disapplying parts of the ECHR and otherwise. That's what I'd look at.
Is she going to go full Farage, do you think?
Maybe not at conference, because there'll be somewhat of a playing to the gallery of a membership that's certainly on the soft left and a little bit annoyed with the leadership at the moment. But I think she's the one that will certainly lean into this sort of stuff.
How critical is this issue for the survival of this Labour government, do you think?
Well, Keir Starmer stays as Prime Minister, we've lost anyway. That's always been my view for the last sort of 6 months. It is a big issue. I think the economy and the cost of living will always be closely behind. But the thing is, where I probably disagree with things like Rwanda, people don't want to see them coming here in the first place, whether I like it or not. The frustration is, and actually, if we look at this in the total black and white of it, we are this great country, proud of our history and whatever else, and we can't stop some rubber boats coming across the channel. That's insane, really.
That's literally the failure of it. You know, the immigration crisis is the #1 issue on everyone's minds. It is the #1 issue coming up in polls. It's for the first time overtaken the economy and the cost of living. It is the #1 issue that people care about. This is a very visual issue. The big issue when it comes to illegal immigration is actually legal immigration. People coming over on visas, bringing families and things like that. That is what exploded the numbers. But the small boats crossing the channel is visual. It's a boat arriving on your shores.
And we don't know who they are.
People who don't know who they are. And that's the biggest thing. This week, there was that news article about the Egyptian man who was a known bomb maker coming to this country, applying for asylum and... I'm sorry, what the heck is going on there? This is the problem, and I agree with exactly what Matthew number 1 said earlier on. You have to know who these people are before they come to this country. And I'm sorry, but if you turn up to this country, we should make it very clear. If you turn up with no documents, if you turn up with no visa, and you turn up with no good reason to be here, sorry, you're gone.
What do you say to those who would argue that it's overblown, that the numbers are in relative terms trivial? And what would you say to those who argue that, in fact, with regard to illegal immigration, the small boats crossing, that that it's people fleeing for their lives?
Where's the women and children? It's the unfairness of it. It's the unfairness of the fact that people can come over here on a small boat and get put up in hotel rooms. It's the unfairness of the fact that British taxpayers are having record high taxes, unable to get support from many services. We're seeing the government trying to cut benefits, cut winter fuel, cut all of these things to fund something that is costing billions of pounds a year. It doesn't matter whether it's one boat or hundreds of boats, it's unfair.
Do we focus unduly on the idea that all of society's ills are because of the 50k that are coming every year? Because I spoke to someone on the left recently who said, look, if you stopped illegal immigration 100% tomorrow, people's lives wouldn't suddenly get better. Is that an argument?
But suddenly we'd have billions of pounds of money we can spend on things like the winter fuel allowance, on supporting people with benefits and disabilities and special education needs schools. The winter fuel allowance cut was only going to save 1.3 billion pounds a year, I think. We spend billions and billions of pounds a year on hotels for illegal immigrants. That is unfair, and the British people have to come first. Keir
Starmer is fighting a war on several fronts. Could a disastrous budget at the end of November bring down his government? That's next.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Dream team today. Tommy is taking your calls at 03444991000. Davis is controlling the cameras. If you want to watch the show, you can see us on YouTube. Now, Davis is gone. He's been replaced by Luke. My God, it's a cutthroat industry, this, isn't it? He lasted 5 minutes. He's doing worse than Keir Starmer. All right, well, I'll be going to Davis's Leave It Drinks later. Engineer Dave has come in and he's fired up the message board. By the way, our executive producer today is Dean Spencer, who's absolutely owning it. Sharon says, Mark, Donald Trump will be the best president in history and Starmer will be the worst prime minister in history. Gary from Canterbury, Trump is a good businessman, and if he was prime minister here, he would give a no-nonsense deal to France, probably saving if I don't get a deal. Sorry, probably saying if I don't get a deal, I will drag all the boats back to France. One in, one out is terrible. Morning, Mark, says Steve. What's going on with your right arm sleeve? It's catching my eye. Great show, by the way. Unfortunately, I've got my protein goals and I've got this energy drink. It's like a protein type scenario that all of the guys on the internet drink. So I'm trying to look like Arnold Schwarzenegger. It's not happening at the moment. I look more like Arnold Palmer. But anyway, it opened in my bag. And I've got a very dry, suspicious stain all over my jacket. Boys, let's get to another problem. I'm really sorry, Matthew Torbett, former Labour advisor, but I've got more bad news for you, and it's the small matter of the economy.
It's only a small matter.
18 billion borrowed last month, which was higher than anticipated by an order of magnitude. Then you've, of course, got zero growth in July. The cost of government borrowing's up. Inflation's up, unemployment is up, and a budget is coming in November. If it goes really badly, could it bring down the government?
Slowly. I think there will be a lot of pressure that will involve discussions further about Keir's leadership. He's not going to go. There'll be a scapegoat, which will obviously be the Chancellor.
She'll be the fall guy.
I would have thought so. And then really the big test for him comes in May at the local elections. We'll likely lose Wales and Scotland as it stands, and therefore, he's got to go. There's a conversation that's got to be had. Really?
Is it realistic that Starmer would go after May if it collapses?
I think he has to, or he can lead
does the Labour Party work like that? They don't really defenestrate their leaders, do they?
There has been, not necessarily, but there has been many discussions over the last couple of weeks that you'll be aware of. And there will be by-elections upcoming, almost certainly, and potential leadership challenge in the summer.
But do we underestimate this guy's tenacity and his appetite for power? I mean, he exists for one thing and one thing alone, which is to be Prime Minister by any means necessary.
I think it can depend. I think when you're on the front pages every day, life is hard. It can be a very lonely existence. I mean, I won't get the world's smallest violin out, but
poor him.
It can't be nice. These people are human beings. I think when it becomes personal, if Lady Starmer goes to him and says, "Look, we can't do this anymore," it takes its toll. We've seen this with leaders previous. Whether it's all really worth it. And I would actually encourage, if it looks like you're going to be the first Prime Minister to ever lose a landslide government within one term, go on your own terms. You've got some small wins that Labour people would be happy about. Go now, having been the person that you got us back into government. We thought we were dead in 2019.
Is that the small win? Power was achieved.
It would be a small win for me, and then we see what comes afterwards.
Do we underestimate Starmer's dogged determination to stay in number 10? I suspect we do, Matthew.
I mean, if we are, he's not showing much reason for us to think he's going to turn it around.
What if he tears up the ECHR, repeals the Human Rights Act?
He said he's not. He said he's not going to.
Well, who cares what he said? Well, that changes by the minute, doesn't it?
Very true point. True point indeed.
No, I just wonder. I hear what you're both saying, but I just wonder. This is a guy famously duplicitous. He's got no backbone and no principles whatsoever. We know that because he pretended to be...
And you're saying this man should continue as Prime Minister?
No, but I'm suggesting that he wants to. This is a guy that pretended to be a Corbynite in order to win the Labour leadership.
Absolutely.
And shifted right moments later, having got the top job.
Dropped every single promise he made to
do you not think there's a chance that he will press a number of policy nuclear buttons in order to save his own bacon?
The problem is that he is one person, and I think they now have 399 MPs. He is one of them, right? The numbers are not in his favour. And the thing with government, which people might not understand, is you have hundreds of MPs who are on the government pay, slips, as ministers, junior ministers, secretaries of state, things like that. But Labour have such a huge majority that outside of that cohort, people who aren't on the pay dole anymore, they have the numbers. If the Labour Party turns around tomorrow and says, Keir, you're done, he will go. And so we are just waiting for, I think, that straw that breaks the camel's back. We're going to have this budget where it whacks up taxes again, makes life even worse, cuts loads of things, spending and all this sort of stuff. People are going to be furious about that. It's going to drag all the way through to May next year. We have the local elections. We're going to see Labour losing councils, Labour losing entire administrations in Scotland, in Wales, in London. And I think that is going to be, as Matthew says, the straw that breaks Keir's back.
What if the illegal boat crossings slow down and the economy picks up next year?
A couple of big ifs. Couple of big ifs. I think it's too late.
Matthew's not having it.
I think it's too late. I think people are at a point where after 14 years they feel worse off than they ever have.
And after 14 more months, they feel even worse.
I don't discount that. I don't discount that. And the point is, there's no patience. I think what Labour tried to do when they came in is do the David Cameron long-term economic plan. Yeah, it was all Labour's fault. People haven't got the time for that. They want to feel it now. And the problem is, my fear in opposition was always that we could do all the best things in the world. 5 years is probably too short of a time for people to really feel it.
And they played politics by talking down the economy when getting into government. When that was meant as a cover for the difficult measures they were going to have to take. That was a big mistake, Matthew.
I think actually it was the last time that Matthew and I were on, we both were saying the fact that Labour came into power with the word change. Everyone wanted change after 14 years of Conservative government. People are very impatient, and if Labour are promising, oh, well, we'll be changed, people want that instantly. And it's been 14 months. Politics is a long game. It takes time to get stuff done, but unfortunately, when you come in and you say, we will be different, we will change, and then things carry on almost as they were, you know, scandal after scandal, resignation after resignation, tax rise, people are fed up, and that's why we've seen now reform rising to a point where they get a huge majority tomorrow.
Matthew, do you want to apologise because almost all of the government's issues are a legacy of the 14 years that the Tories were in power?
I've always come on this show and other shows.
Sorry seems to be the hardest word.
Well, I've always come on this show and said I'm very. I've always come on this show and other shows.
I guess that's why they
said,
call you
I'm terribly sorry. How many more have we got on this?
I've got a whole back catalogue.
I've always come on this show and said, yes, we messed up. We apologise. That's why we're not the government anymore.
We messed up. Is that the best you've got?
I'm not a Conservative MP. I wasn't in the Conservative government.
Why haven't you left the party?
We've had this discussion before. I am inside the tent trying my best to get the party to wake up to the reality that we are facing a long hold sit on the backbenches. We have to change. We have to get sorted out. I've said this before. And if the party won't listen, then yeah, who knows what will happen to my membership card.
Matthew,
but for now, I'm inside and trying to fix things.
It's their lot that done this.
Yeah, but it doesn't mean we've got to continue the managed decline that we've seen over the last 14 years. That was my concern, which is why I thought I'm going. I don't think this is going to go well. And over the last 14 months, it appears that's going to be the case. I had no faith in the people that surrounded the leader. I had no faith in those that were putting together policies. And the fact is that there was a plan to win the election, there was no plan to govern. And what happens is the civil service will impose their political priorities on you if you do not have political priorities. And what we end up with is winter fuel cuts and other silly things. What you could have done in this budget, if you'd have had any political sense, is gone, if we're going to annoy older people, make it worthwhile. So anyone with a brain surely realises that the triple lock is not sustainable and is not going to last, and it's only going to push us further into borrowing and debt. If we had let the state pension go up with wages, at the rate of wages, not as a triple lock, we'd have saved 40 billion every year for the last 20 years. Why would we not do that and bring in 40 billion, which is ironically the black hole apparently that we're led to believe, rather than a measly 1.5 billion for winter fuel allowance, and also giving people the optics of little old Doris freezing to death at home? That's the image that people come up with. So it's a lack of political judgment, which is why, you know, I never thought Keir was going to be any good.
Well, that's a great question. Rachel Reeves, that's the nuclear button for her. Could she scrap the triple lock in the November budget? It would certainly solve a financial problem, but it would create the mother of all political problems. Are Labour about to throw pensioners under the bus again? That's next.
know from endless examples that women are often persuaded, cajoled into staying in abusive, physically, sexually abusive relationships by these courts. We know that they lose the custody of their children when the children reach a certain age. We know that they're not given the same financial standing and rights to inheritance. It really is an absolute regime that has no place in this country of ours.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Oxford and Cambridge fall out of the top 3 universities in the country. Matthew Torbit, is that what happens when you discard merit and excellence?
Don't know, because this comes from outcomes post-uni, which is interesting. I suppose the assumption is you go to Oxford, you're going to be guaranteed an half-decent role. Graduate jobs broadly are on the wane. I was only reading this morning that I think it's something like 60% of graduate jobs are only just about paying above the minimum wage. I think 20% more than the minimum wage. Therefore, you're wondering whether it's worth the graduate premium of borrowing the 50 grand. I don't know if it's whether Durham is over-succeeding, whether they're doing things better. We're getting more firsts and 2-1s out of Durham than we are Oxford and Cambridge. I don't know is the truth. It's not somewhere I went, unfortunately, so I can only speak to it so much. I've seen a lot of stuff over whether people have got in, whether it be on merit or otherwise. I'd be surprised if it wasn't, because ultimately it's still going to be... People are desperate to go to Oxford and Cambridge, right, because of the history of it and what it can do to your CV and your life chances. So I'd be surprised, but maybe you know something else.
Well, you should have to get AAA, like A stars, to get into Oxford and Cambridge. That's not the case anymore. They've loosened the entry criterion with focus on ethnic background, economic background. Is this the ghost of DEI, diversity, equity and inclusion?
Well, as somebody who got rejected from Cambridge despite getting A star AA, and now seeing that you can get far, get in for far less, seeing Cambridge and Oxford dropping out of the league, it is literally the thing of, I think other universities are waking up to it. They are taking a lot of the people who didn't get into Oxford and Cambridge and saying, you are still brilliant, you're still absolutely fantastic, and giving them that chance and that opportunity. I think London School of Economics came out #1 for the second year running. So it is the fact of, yes, historically, Oxford and Cambridge have been this golden, we've got to get into Cambridge and Oxford, that's what you've got to do. But actually people are going, you don't. Actually, wherever you go, find the right place for you, give it your all, you'll get the same grade at the end of it, frankly, and then you still go out into the job market. And yes, I think the postgraduate jobs market is really, really waning, so it doesn't really matter where you go, it's what you do with it.
But does it not tell us that these policies of inclusion are against merit, against excellence, and against success?
Yeah, absolutely. I've said for a long time, it should not matter where you come from or who you are, it matters what you can do. It matters about yourself. It doesn't matter about your background or anything. And I find it really frustrating to see that, I think the new Oxford president-elect, for example, got into Oxford on one of these schemes, it sounds like. I find that really frustrating.
Because ABB, which wouldn't even get you into Manchester.
That wouldn't even get you an interview. Wouldn't even get you an interview at Oxbridge. So that's the frustration, because that is taking a place from somebody who did get those grades, but then was told, oh no, you can't have it because we've got to fill some quotas. It doesn't matter where you come from, it's what you're willing to do. Are you willing to push yourself and really, really drive? That's what I care about.
Yeah, I mean, Matthew, earlier in the studio we had the former Met detective Peter Blexley, and his son got AAA, 3 AAA stars. What do you call it? No, 3 A stars. There you go. You can tell I didn't go to Oxford. 3 A stars. that should guarantee entry into Oxbridge, and he failed.
Oh, that's crazy. Crazy.
Is this, well, I don't know. Is there loads of people getting A stars? I don't know. It depends what you want.
Then it boils down to ethnicity, socioeconomic background, and other factors. Is that right, or should the best person get the place?
Thank you.
I think it depends. It's horses for courses. I'm not saying... People slag the EI, right? They never talk about class, right? And I think that we never focus on class in that sort of discussion. And I think that is one of the more important aspects, because it covers everything else in the diversity lexicon. I went to Salford. I had a look yesterday. It was 72nd in the list. I achieved far more...
I think you took it up from... I think it would have been low 80s if you hadn't been there.
Probably.
Yeah, I think you pulled it up.
But no, I achieved more there than I would have done at Oxford. I'd have struggled at Oxford. I'd have struggled with the background stuff.
I completely agree with. Same for me.
Salford Salford was full of people with different life experiences, lots of older women, and you learnt so much more because of that. And I think that fed into me exactly what I needed. And when Matthew's talking about what it is you can do, I think I showed there I could do so much more, and have gone on to hopefully do some good than what I would have done at Oxford, where I may have blurred into the blancmange there, I would say.
Exact same for me. So I went to University of Nottingham. I really, really enjoyed it. Perfect campus, perfect city. My sister has literally just gone to the University of Nottingham yesterday, for example, because she liked the fact that I went there and got to learn the place. It was the perfect level of pressure, but not trying to break you. That's what the Oxbridge model tends to be. You've got to be a first, you've got to be the next professor of something, and if you're not, then sorry, you're not good enough. And I wouldn't have coped at that. I would not have coped at that. I needed those, lectures and seminars where you could go and talk to people afterwards, and it wasn't like you're talking to this, professor who you can't get an appointment with unless you pay, however much it'll be to get a second of their attention. Actually, there are other options. There are other universities out there. It doesn't have to be Oxbridge. And there are actually other routes as well. You don't have to really go to university nowadays in a lot of courses. You can go and do open courses online, go and get work apprenticeships. There are so many other things. I think people are waking up to value for money.
And actually, sorry, very quickly, to prove that point, I did a Master's at the University of Manchester. Didn't finish it.
So educated. You got letters after your name.
Didn't finish it. And it was, at the time, the best sociology course in the country. So I couldn't believe I'd got on. Mostly international students. People were astounded that I put my hand up to ask a question of the lecturer during the lecture. Totally different experience whatsoever. Didn't enjoy it. Nothing necessarily against the uni. One guy in particular was very good. A course he did. It's the only course in Europe that does secrets, lies and mass deception as a course. It's very interesting. But totally alien compared to Salford. Really hated it. And thought this isn't for me, basically.
Never did a master's. Decided to go out into the world, get a job, and go learn that way.
No, well, that's working in your favour. iWeekend MPs, Matthew, secretly want to kill UK state pension triple lock, but reform of this policy would be too toxic for Reeves. Would she think the unthinkable and throw pensioners under the bus one more time?
If Rachel Reeves decides to have an entire winter of more videos of old pensioners dying, then I think she will go very, very quickly. Labour's own assessment was that 4,000 pensioners could die from scrapping the winter fuel payment. Then they decided to do that last year. If they decide to get rid of the triple lock, or decide to, row even harder onto, pension reform, what's that number? That is the problem. Every decision has consequences. Labour have to balance the books somehow, but if you're going to do it off the back of pensioners who... Not every pensioner is a millionaire. Let's get that very, very clear, because all I ever hear is, oh, a millionaire pension... Not every pensioner is a millionaire. Vast majority of pensioners just about get above the breadline. It's not okay to say that every pensioner is a millionaire. So let's be really clear. Those are the people who will get impacted by this. They're always forgotten. That tiny slither of people who are just above, that by this decision fall just below. It's like with the private schools VAT. It's not about the millionaire parents who they can pay the extra 20%. It's the students who got in on scholarships, on schemes to get into the university because they're brilliant at arts or music or sports, who now can't afford it. Those parents who work 2-3 jobs to send their kid off to private school, who now can't afford it. Those are the people who get impacted by this. So I plead with Rachel from accounts, don't do it.
Do you think that in the months ahead, Labour will have to shift right on a whole range of policies, Matthew?
They can't go more right,
culturally. Yes.
Well, so a more aggressive approach to the illegal immigration issue, austerity 2.0, tax cuts, because it's my view that those are the policies that are required.
I think I'd have preferred to have done this in the winter fuel. I think actually we were lucky that we had quite a mild winter, and we tend to get mild winters now, otherwise it could have been really, really bad headlines, and there wasn't an impact that maybe was worse feared. This would have been, for me, more palatable, and if you're going to annoy people, at least, like I say, make it financially worthwhile for the country as such. I don't think we will shift right. I can see we need to make savings. Listen, we can't be in a situation where we borrowed 140 billion quid last year and 105 billion was just paying off the interest on the debt. That's unsustainable, so something has to give, definitely. What she'll decide to do, I don't know. I think kite flying and scaring off savers who are now going abroad and whatever else is the wrong way to go about it. But we'll see in a couple of months. I think it'll be a bloodbath.
Gentlemen, brilliant to have your company. My thanks to Conservative councillor Matthew Goodwin Freeman. He hasn't gone to Reform yet, but watch this space. He's on suicide watch.
Oh, God.
He's in a padded cell.
I'm doing my best to save the Conservative Party.
There you go.
Let's see if I can
CCTV
achieve it.
camera is filming him as we speak. OK, and former Labour advisor Matthew Torbett. Listen, folks, your reaction, 0344 499 1000. Next up, Keir Starmer, shocking poll ratings, the lowest so far in their administration, joined bottom with the Tories. Reform on double that. Where does Starmer go from here? Plus, I'm looking forward to this. We're going to have a right old ding-dong. The controversial eco-entrepreneur Dale Vince is campaigning to get Israel kicked out of Eurovision. Well, he's live on the show in the next hour, and we are going to have a ding-dong. Don't go anywhere. Keep it talk.
Five, four, three, two, one. Yay!
87222, start your message with the word talk. Who would you send to space and why?
The person I would love to send to space would be Mr. Keir Starmer. And then I would tell the Galactic Empire that he was part of the Rebel Alliance and let them blow him away with the Death Star. No Brits was involved, no fingers could be pointed.
You carry on taking the medication, George. Yes, I'd send all the Labour government to space with a one-way ticket and throw in the SNP for being useless. They're all a bunch of... Oh, all right, fair enough.
One person, quite frankly, I think needs to go to space in a one-way journey is Jeremy Kyle. He goes on about his age one more time, how he's 60 this year, he was 59 last year, repetitively over the course of the weeks and months. We have to hear him, I'm 60 this year, I'm 60 this year.
Richard Tice, did you put that cheeky bugger up to that?
I'm hoping he's going to send me the invoice because that was absolutely brilliant.
Which MP would you send to space?
Oh, no, I'll get in terrible trouble if I answer that. But it's fair to say there's quite a long list.
The sad thing is about sending people into space on a one-way ticket is I don't think that we've built a spaceship big enough to take the lunatics off this planet. I mean, from the net zero loonies to the transgender loonies to the racists to the terrorists, there is just so much to the wokerati. We need some big spaceships.
Big spaceships.
Good evening. I never know how you're going to start this conversation, Jeremy.
Katy Perry went to space today, OK? Who would you send... I'd love her to say what I wanted to, but I'd never disrespect her. Who would you send to space who could never come back?
Well, I'd be happy to send Ed Miliband to space, I think.
Oh, that is an outrageous question, so I'm not even going to answer that question.
Sam Matterface, so you get the job, yeah? Come on.
No, Sam Matterface, I tell you what, there's no.
I think David Lammy would be the person I'd want to send up in space and never come back again.
Yeah, the problem is how much would the bill be for him to munch through whatever food on the way there?
Hey, it worked.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
I'm Mark Dolan, and this is Breakfast on Talk, the home of common sense. A big hour to come, a fresh headache for the Prime Minister as Sir Keir Starmer's Labour Party plunges to a new low in the polls. Will he make it to Christmas, or is he a stuffed turkey? And is Donald Trump right that we should use the military to stop the boats? Now, the Prime Minister will today recognise Palestine as an official state. Is this a reward to Hamas for terrorism? And eco-entrepreneur Dale Vince is campaigning for Israel to be kicked out of the Eurovision Song Contest. He joins us on the show. Plus, our very own Peter Cardwell joins me to discuss his new book, Political Animals. And my priority is your opinions. So give me a call, 0344 499 1000, or text the word talk and your message to 87222. And we'll get to your calls and texts in just a moment, but with me in the studio looking at the big political stories of the day is the Sun on Sunday's political editor, Kate Ferguson. Kate, good to see you.
Good to be here, rather.
Now, I have spent the last 3 hours bemoaning the state of this government and the perilous situation that Sir Keir Starmer finds himself in, particularly that latest poll, which has Reform on over double where Labour are in the public standing. However, he had a respite this week, courtesy of one Donald J. Trump.
Yeah, Donald Trump did Keir Starmer a huge favour this week. We had this much kind of anticipated 2-day state visit. All of the week before, journalists like me were warning that this could be a huge disaster for Keir Starmer. What if the Peter Mandelson, Jeffrey Epstein issue really overshadows it? But turns out Donald Trump was, really throwing the PM a lifeline here. He was very well behaved. The state visit went really well. And when he did have that press conference at the end, there was a couple of bits of advice to the PM on things like how to stop illegal immigration. But he played nice, Donald Trump, and he didn't kind of lean in with the Mandelson-Epstein thing at all. So I think Number 10 will be breathing a huge sigh of relief this week. There's these amazing pictures that have been in the papers today and yesterday of Kate smiling at Donald Trump, and she's got this kind of very angelic princess smile on, and Trump just looks delighted. He couldn't be happier. So I think the Royals really played their game well this week.
Most definitely. And of course we saw Donald Trump displaying the art of the deal this week, because although he and Keir Starmer are not ideological allies, he knows that this is the British Prime Minister, he's the US President, and he wants to do business with the guy. And we had that amazing announcement of investment into the UK tech industry and AI worth potentially tens of billions of pounds. Is that vindication for Brexit Britain?
Yes, because the interesting thing about that deal is we're able to do that because we're not in the EU anymore. So it's kind of like a little detail that
because the EU are terrified of tech and
really
the digital
regulating.
industries.
They're really regulating
They
AI.
see it as a great threat, don't they?
Exactly. And we're going down a different path. We're saying, bring your investment here. We're going to embrace the AI tech revolution. So those billions of promised investment that came this week, I think that state visit helped lever it all in, helped bring it forward probably, and it's a benefit for Brexit Britain.
Most definitely. And Starmer, I would argue, outmanoeuvred in regard to some policy areas by the President. It's embarrassing for us, isn't it, to see the leader of a foreign nation explaining to our Prime Minister what he needs to do to fix Britain, and that would be drill, baby, drill in the North Sea. Not that we don't think renewables are part of the mix, but we have these amazing resources at our disposal, and also reduce tax and stop illegal immigration, something that Trump successfully did.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. Donald Trump has, I think the last month's figures for the US is no illegal immigrants. That is just unfathomable here. Meanwhile, here we're getting I think it's 1,000 yesterday arrived in Dover.
Yes, 1,061.
Yeah, so obviously the boats, the illegal immigration crisis, the biggest crisis arguably facing PM Keir Starmer. The Sun's journalist Jack rather mischievously asked President Trump if he had any tips for our own PM and how to solve that. Donald Trump helpfully said send in the army or the navy. Look, what is clear is that Keir Starmer is going to have to bring those numbers down and grip that crisis if he's going to get anywhere near Nigel Farage and Reform in clawing back that poll rating.
Definitely, and I think that people underestimate Keir Starmer's determination to stay in number 10. He was determined to become Prime Minister and indeed leader of the Labour Party by pretending to be a Corbynite, but then being quite the opposite in power. This is a guy, he's pragmatic to say the least. That's being polite. So can we see him turning on a dime? Could he press the nuclear button? Could he tear up the ECHR, revoke the Human Rights Act, or look again at the Refugee Convention?
Well, these are the three big questions. You know, he's just put quite a hardline politician in as Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood. She says all that stuff is on the table. But remember, Keir Starmer is at heart kind of quite a lefty human rights barrister. The Attorney General, Lord Hermer, is somebody that's still going out defending those same laws and conventions daily. So currently, I'm not convinced the government is willing to do that. But 4 years is a long time, and I do think you're going to see Labour become kind of almost more radicalised in the solutions they grope at.
Yeah.
You know, they're going to start realising they need their own deterrent, that these conventions are holding them back, and they may come to the realisation that incremental reform is not enough.
Most definitely, and that Overton window in terms of the conversation about illegal immigration has shifted. It shifts by the hour now, doesn't it?
Totally. Yeah,
and people are angry, and rightly so. Somebody that could capitalise is Andy Burnham,
yes,
who appears to be somebody that, you know, if there were a future leadership battle, that he might be sitting pretty, although he'd need a seat in Parliament. Let's take a listen. We've got a clip of Andy Burnham.
I haven't ever ruled out going back to Westminster. You know, I've said that over the years, and obviously I do watch what's going on down there, so I'm not going to say not, but it wouldn't be, I think this is the thing I would want to get over to people, it wouldn't be me sort of saying, right, I'm going to put myself right out there again. It would have to sort of come in a different direction of people. So I'm trying my best from here, if you like, to do everything I can to build Greater Manchester, and I think we're in a pretty good place.
That was a bit of a word salad, wasn't it? That was a Kamala Harris special. What exactly was he saying? The bottom line is he'd love to be Prime Minister, wouldn't he?
Andy Burnham would love to be Prime Minister. He's tried to be Labour leader before. He's definitely
2 or 3 times.
Exactly. He's going to try again. He's basically saying that, well, you know, of course I wouldn't push myself forward, but if the call came, if the clamour was such that you needed me to be leader, of course I'd answer the call. The reality is it's pretty hard for Andy Burnham to get back. He'd need to have a seat. He'd want that to be an ultra-safe seat now, because going back to that poll you mentioned in the headlines, Reform are leading in all over the country. So, you know, no such thing as a safe seat for Labour anymore. However, is the Andy Burnham plot real? It definitely is. There's lots of chatter among Labour MPs. In last week's Sun on Sunday, we did a big story on it. A lot of Labour Manchester MPs who were sacked in the reshuffle are angry. Could they throw their support behind Andy Burnham? Some people are calling it the Etihad plot because they're all Man City fans. But I mean, watch this space. I expect Burnham to cause a lot of trouble and a lot of mischief at next week's Labour Party conference.
And it seems that Labour are being pulled in 2 directions, because on the one hand you've got sort of those red wall MPs who are pretty hardline on immigration and also cultural issues, wokery and the rest of it. Then you've got your woke metropolitan Labour lovies, the like of whom are featured in today's Guardian. 2-child benefit cap is spiteful, says Minister. So the party is just very torn. There isn't a natural path forward for Keir Starmer because he's effectively riding 2 horses at the same time, the left of his party and the right.
Yeah, so there's kind of 2 big wings in Labour at the moment. They overlap, but they can also butt heads. You've got this thing called the soft left. So this isn't the kind of Corbynista mad left wing, but it's people that say, put up taxes. They say, introduce this thing called a wealth tax. God knows what that is, but they want it. And they want to liberalise welfare reform, so they want to lift the 2-child benefit cap.
And maybe scrap the pensioners' triple lock.
And well, potentially, although that would be hugely controversial. So there's a big clamour within the party to basically raise taxes and spend more, broadly. Then you have your kind of more blue-collar, kind of red wall-y type Labour MPs who are very, very, very worried about immigration, and that is probably their main concern. So they're not exactly diametrically opposed, but they've got different priorities, and they probably want to see money spent in different ways.
Speaking of money, the sword of Damocles that hangs over this government is the November budget, which is as late as possible. It's a bit like when you're at school and you said to teacher, can I bring my homework in on Monday? Stretch it out as long as possible, because it ain't going to make for pretty reading. And we've had more. I mean, last time we spoke, spoke, we'd had that statistic of zero growth in July. Now we've got higher borrowing by an order of multitude. Last month, £18 billion. We're deeply in the red, and that's a big problem for this government politically.
Huge problem. I mean, we've been talking so much about immigration. Give it a month and we are going to be talking about one thing only, and that is this budget. Rachel Reeves is kind of becoming a bit of an essay crisis chancellor, trying to do little pots of tax rises here and there to get her over the line with each budget. That budget, you're right, she's kept it, she's kind of burning the midnight oil, kept it to the very last minute in the hope things might get a bit better. But by the day, the economy seems to get worse. So it's going to be really, really tricky for her. We're going to see tax rises. The only question is how big and who do they hit?
Yes, and it's economic quicksand, isn't it? Because these tax rises dampen growth, and growth is the one thing they need.
Look, I think everyone would agree now, privately at least, that Nick's tax rise last year really hammered the economy.
Yeah.
Bad political choice, bad economic choice, which Labour may spend years trying to dig themselves out of. That stopped people hiring, it stopped productivity, and it stopped growth. And that was a big, big, big mistake.
Here's an easy win for Sir Keir Starmer if he wants to save his skin, which he has a record of doing. He fires Rachel Reeves after the budget, and that is his licence to pivot on economic policy. Could that happen? You know, Rachel Reeves, will she be out by Christmas?
I don't know if she'll be out by Christmas, but post-budget, is there a one in which Keir Starmer has the wriggle room to get rid of his chancellor if he wants to? Yes. But look, the fundamentals are the same. So what happens with the new chancellor? The question is how you're going to get economic growth in this country. And I think that AI kind of tech investment may be where it comes from, if it comes from anywhere. But the kind of choice facing Keir Starmer is a lot of people in his party want taxes to go up more, want the fiscal rules torn up so that they can borrow more. So getting rid of Rachel Reeves is not necessarily a kind of you may see him pivot more to the left if he got rid of Rachel Reeves, which is something to consider. And also, we're in a strange parallel universe where be careful what you wish for, because if Starmer were to step down and be replaced, he could be replaced by somebody that's further to the left economically and possibly more tolerant of immigration and a range of other factors. Labour could conceivably shift left under a new leader. Oh, yeah. I mean, I think you're talking about do they shift left, not do they shift right. And Andy Burnham, I mean, this is a man who probably doesn't have the same, well, definitely doesn't have the same scrutiny that Keir Starmer and the politicians down in Westminster have on him. But, you know, this is a man who, if he became leader, he's not even stood on the manifesto ticket. No. He would have no mandate. You know, we just went through this with the Conservatives when they changed leader. Immediately, that next Prime Minister has questions over what personal mandate they have, and they find it very hard to bring the backbenchers along with them. So if Labour did change leader, it'd be hard to see how they could do it and not call an election. Wow, Starmer going, be careful what you wish for. So a packed paper tomorrow. You're the political editor of The Sun on Sunday. Yes. And it's going to be, it's the boats, it's the economy. And I suppose the other thing that you must be mindful of is events, dear boy, events. I mean, an economic crash, another war. Goodness knows what's in store for this government, who are already on the ropes. Yeah, that's true. I mean, we have got a packed paper tomorrow. Expect more on the borders and that immigration crisis. We've got a big story coming later, which should be a big talker, which I can't tell you much about now. But absolutely packed paper tomorrow. Always a must read. Great to see you in the studio. My thanks to The Sun on Sun's political editor, Kate Ferguson. Make sure you buy the paper or grab it online when it publishes tomorrow. Next up, we're going to get your calls. Is Britain still a Christian country? That's next.
know from endless examples that women are often persuaded, cajoled into staying in abusive, physically, sexually abusive relationships by these courts. We know that they lose the custody of their children when the children reach a certain age. We know that they're not given the same financial standing and rights to inheritance. It really is an absolute regime that has no place in this country of ours.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
If you're joining us, some breaking news. Heathrow Airport have warned of delays as a cyber attack has disrupted several European airports. We'll bring you more on that as we get it. Is Britain still a Christian country? That's a question that Sir Keir Starmer struggled to answer whilst doing a press conference with Donald Trump this week. Pam said, Mark, Christianity is dying out because it's no longer taught in schools. It's not just Christianity, it is the moral code and how you treat people that is dying too. We spoke to a leading bishop earlier, and Steve says, Mark, your bishop guest is amazing, talking so much sense with intelligence and compassion and not scared to say what needs to be said. Jackie, hi Mark, Britain no longer feels like a Christian country. People think it's cool to say they're an atheist and have no religion. But how many people still want to get married in a church? Hypocrites. No wonder we're so easy to ignore and brush aside. Love the bishop. Have him on more, please, says Russell in Alicante. And finally, Steve, Mark, wow, that bishop you were interviewing was a breath of fresh air. May I be the first to nominate him for the vacant post of Archbishop. Great show regarding Steve Williams at St Leonard's on Sea. Is Britain still a Christian country? Grace is in London. Hello, Grace.
Hi.
Were you surprised by Sir Keir Starmer's answer to that question? Because I'll quote you what he said. He was asked by a journalist, is Britain still a Christian country? And he said, I was christened. That is my church, has been all my life. That is wired into our informal constitution. Of course, we celebrate many other faiths as well, and I'm really proud we're able to do so. That doesn't sound like a yes to me.
No, I think it's actually. I almost laughed when he said it. I'm more sympathetic to Starmer than most of your listeners will be. Aside from the fact that he slashed the international aid budget, which will lead to people dying. Aside from that, I'm not normally anti-Starmer, but I did think that was a ridiculous answer. Although you could consider it a summation of the fact that for a while in our country, people have thought about Christianity as being about traditions, such as being christened or where you get married. Yeah. And in reality, Christianity isn't about those things. Those things are brilliant. It's brilliant that we have carol services and christenings and weddings in churches. It's really brilliant that, as your guest was saying, and as other people, including the historian Tom Holland, for example, have recognised, many things in our culture do come ultimately from Jesus' teachings. It wasn't a given here in the white Western part of the globe that you should treat others with respect until the teachings of this Middle Eastern man came over here and spread around. So those things are all brilliant, but ultimately Christianity isn't what you learn in school or whether or not you attend church. Christianity is choosing personally to repent and turn to Christ. And if you do, that will impact your behaviour. But it's not actually your behaviour that is Christianity itself. Christianity itself is choosing to follow Jesus, and we each make that decision or not. And I mean, your message a moment ago mentioned learning Christianity in school. You You don't really learn this in school. You can learn about it. I personally grew up with a Christian family, but I didn't really believe until I learned in science a lot about complexity that made me realise we should presume there's a designer, because so much of the molecular systems that we have is interdependence, and there's a necessity for there to be someone designing it. It couldn't have come about all on its own. And then I learned more about the evidence for Jesus having risen. But you don't just get Christianity from your parents. You make a decision yourself. And clearly more and more people in our country just aren't really interested. I don't think it's necessarily, actually, about Islam or anything else. I think nature abhors a vacuum, as they say, and I think our country has just been gradually kind of ignoring God for a while, and then Muslim people have been having more babies than the rest of the population. Therefore, Islam is increasing, Christianity has decreased, but I don't think Islam is actually taking over in the way that some people presume, because there aren't many people converting from Christianity to Islam.
Briefly, Grace, if we lose Christianity, do we lose Britishness?
I think we in losing a valuing of Jesus' teachings, we are losing really important values. For example, I'm seeing now how some of our media implies that greed is a good thing, that selfishness can be a good thing. Increasingly, things that had been a given for a while, including the idea that we should try to love our neighbours in other countries, that we should even try to love our enemies. Those things we thought were at least things to aim towards, even though we don't fulfil them very well. But we're losing even those. And that is, as the Bishop said, contributing to societal breakdown and bad behaviour.
Grace, have a great Saturday. We'll catch up soon. John is in Sutton. John, is Britain still a Christian country?
Oh, very much so. Very much so. But I am actually a registered member of the Church of England. I go to church every week.
Yeah.
But I do get annoyed when the bishops rub up the British people the wrong way. You know?
When they talk about slavery reparations or attack the government for spending cuts?
Yeah, and how terrible we are if we raise any questions about immigration and...
Yeah. Net zero. The church love a bit of net zero, don't they?
Yeah. But, you know, the parable of the Good Samaritan is something I'd like to quote to the bishops. And it's not actually extolling the virtues of the Samaritan, believe it or not. A lot of people think it is. It's actually a condemnation of the man's fellow countrymen who passed by on the other side, ignoring his plight. So we have a duty to one another first. That's what that parable is about. Because it doesn't actually say who robbed the man. It might have been a Samaritan.
Yeah.
And the Samaritan that helped him was a thoroughly decent human being. He was a stranger. And a man's fellow countryman walked past on the other side. Well, that kind of reminds me when the bishops are saying things like, oh, we should be nicer to the immigrants and everything like that. The bishops are not down the local council.
Yeah.
Sitting with a lot of immigrants begging to be housed. They're living rent-free in accommodation provided by the church. Do you get where I'm coming from?
It's 100% right what you're saying, and you're drawing a parallel between the need to stop illegal immigration with the parable of the Good Samaritan, that actually charity starts at home. We've got veterans who fought for this country who are on the streets, and yet we accommodate strangers who have broken the law by coming here from a safe country of France, who go into hotels and receive pocket money and a mobile phone.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's unchristian, isn't it? Can I just ask you, I'm going to quote to you as well, John, how Starmer answered that question, is Britain still a Christian country? He didn't say yes, Britain's a Christian country, which, by the way, it is. Can I just go on the radio now? I don't care if I get cancelled, John. I'm going to say it on the radio and on TV that Britain is a Christian country. But he said, I was christened, that is my church, it has been all my life. He said, Christianity is wired into our informal constitution. Of course, we celebrate many other faiths as well, and I'm really proud we are able to do so. What did you think, as a Christian man and as a British citizen, of that answer?
Oh, it was very sort of mealy-mouthed. Look at the magnificent job the church did, Mark, at the Queen's funeral. We showed the world we were a Christian country.
Yeah.
How dignified we are in death and how much we celebrate life. And the nativity, Mark, is beautiful, and it's more magical than any fairy tale. The beauty of the Christian religion is missed by a lot of people.
Well, you're absolutely right, and the importance that it has to the country that is Britain, a country that we love, that is sadly ebbing away from us and becoming unrecognisable. John, really enjoyed our conversation. Let's also speak soon. Steve is in Leeds. Steve, let's talk about a very, very big move by Keir Starmer today, which is likely expected that he will recognise Palestine as an official state. Is that a good move?
No.
Why not?
Easy answer, Mark. Well, the Palestinians have been given a chance to show that they can run, manage and develop their own state. That happened in 2005 when Israel pulled out completely from Gaza. Loads of international aid went into Gaza, which was a proxy Palestinian state then. That was your two-state solution. And in those 20 years, the Palestinians in Gaza took the opportunity, rather than to develop their own state, hospitals, schools, education, roads, infrastructure, make it the paradise that it could be, they chose to spend the money on tunnels, bombs and terrorist training camps, so that 20 years later, 10,000 terrorists came over the border and killed 1,000 Jews. So what makes anybody think they're going to do it differently again? If you go back to, here you go, there's Gaza for you, we'll all put the aid in and rebuild it, we'll get the Israelis out. In 20 years' time, you'll be back in the same circle. So I think it's very naive and stupid of our Prime Minister to think that you're going to change the situation just by saying, oh, Gaza's now going to become Palestine.
How do you think it makes British Jews, Jewish people that watch and listen to this show, feel that their Prime Minister is taking sides as Israel fights for its very existence?
If I was Jewish, I'm not. I'm a Christian, but if I was Jewish, I'd be leaving. I'd leave and go to Israel, yeah? Because this country is becoming more and more anti-Semitic as the days go by. And whenever we've got a government that panders to a particular religious beliefs of another country, of another culture, and doesn't, this goes back to your question of are we Christian? If we were a Christian country with a Christian Prime Minister, there wouldn't been to a Muslim minority in this country. And I know that sounds awful, but that's the truth of it. They're that terrified of the Muslim vote and how it's going to affect their ability to hold power, they will agree to do the most awful things. They sit back and watch anti-Semitism blossom in this country and do nothing about it. They sit there and support a terrorist group in the sake of a few votes at an election. It's absolutely disgusting the way they're acting.
Do you think the discarding of Christianity in this country, which I think is an issue within the political and media class, is it part of the Britain-hating ideology that suffuses our public institutions now? We've got to be ashamed of everything, our past, our history, our values, our traditions, and our religion.
Well, Mark, when you mentioned about Keir Starmer, our Christian country, I go back to earlier this year when schools cancelled Easter. At Christmas, when it's suddenly not Christmas, it's a religious festival or a happy time. The evidence is there. Don't listen to the words, look at the evidence. This government does not support Christianity and the Christian faith in our schools. It doesn't support it in our celebration. It would rather spend millions of pounds on Diwali and all these other religious festivals from other countries. Fine, if you want to do that, but don't deny your own population the ability to celebrate the fact that we're Christian, have been for centuries, and I hope always will be. Because I think our values, our cultural Christian values, are superior to a lot of other cultural values that are starting to dominate in this country.
Well, I completely agree. I agree. If there are other religions that have women as second-class citizens or believe in female circumcision or God knows what else, then I 100% agree with you, Steve. Just briefly, finally, do you think, because I agree with the Prime Minister that we celebrate all religions, that's fine, Britain's an open, tolerant society, and we've talked about Jews and we talked about, peace-loving Muslims in this country, no problem. But should Christianity have primacy over those other religions, given our history?
Yes, the Christian religion is part of our cultural values, and our cultural values, whether they be Christian or otherwise, just traditional British values, should always have primacy over people coming into the country. It's why people are so upset, because the traditional British citizen is being undervalued at the expense of people who've never contributed, don't have our values. It all links into that idea that being British is somehow horrible. It's a nasty place to be. Well, if it is, why do so many people want to come here and take advantage of it?
Listen, I really appreciate your call. Thank you very much for that. Steve in Leeds, who is not happy with the decision by the Prime Minister. It's expected today, or certainly in the next day or two, that the British government will recognise the state of Palestine. Next up, I'm going to debate that issue with the highly successful eco-entrepreneur Dale Vince, who's also campaigning for Israel to be kicked out of international football. That's next.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Now listen, folks, you're listening to Talk, the home of common sense. The Prime Minister this weekend is expected to recognise Palestine as a state. Let's get reaction from a man who's campaigning for Israel to be kicked out of international football. And it is Dale Vince, the owner of Ecotricity and the chairman, I believe, of Forest Green Rovers. Dale Vince, welcome to Talk. Good to see you.
Yeah, morning, Mark. Good to see you too.
First of all, your reaction to an expected decision by the Prime Minister to recognise Palestine.
Well, I think it's a good thing. It's overdue for Britain to do this. 147 countries in the world have already done it, and about half the G7 are going to do it this month.
Shouldn't the Prime Minister wait until the war has concluded?
I don't think the war will ever conclude. I think the West are not doing enough to make sure that happens. I think Israel are unchecked, attacking all of their neighbours. They're occupying parts of Syria. They've been occupying Palestine for 60 years. This war won't end until the West gets its act together.
And what about your campaign for Israel to be kicked out of international football? How is that justified, given the climate in the Middle East at the moment?
How is it not justified would be my answer, Mark. I mean, be aware that Russia was kicked out of European football, presumably for its invasion and occupation of Ukraine. Israel have just been found guilty of genocide by the United Nations. They've openly declared an intent for ethnic cleansing, and they're starving millions of people to death. I mean, what Israel are doing in Palestine is beyond the pale. It's far, far worse than what Russia have done. And Russia have been kicked out of all international sport for what they have done.
And do you not accept the argument that Israel was invaded by, obviously, Hamas forces in the single worst attack on Jewish people since the Holocaust? And the fact is that Hamas, in their charter, exist to eliminate Israel unilaterally and completely.
I don't know about Hamas charter. I haven't read it. I don't know if you have, Mark.
I've looked into it, and it contains explicitly anti-Semitic language, including the rocks and trees passage, which calls for the killing of Jews.
Okay, understood. Look, what Hamas did was wrong, no doubt about it. That invasion, the deaths of 1,000 people. But Israel have replied with the death and injury of 150,000 people, the destruction of 90% of all homes in Palestine, and the mass starvation of people. I mean, it's an outrageous response, not self-defense, it's not proportionate. So I don't think that you can pin anything on this Hamas attack and say what Israel are doing is okay.
And what about football fans? Why should they pay the price for this international conflict? And the football players who are not necessarily a part of, you know, this military activity that's happening in the Middle East? They're footballers.
Did you ask that question when Russia was kicked out of European football?
Well, I'm not sure that they necessarily should have been. You know, I certainly thought it was bizarre that Olympic athletes weren't able to compete as private individuals who happen to be Russian. I thought that was very wrong. I suppose there is an argument to be had around the football. I mean, would you go as far as to chuck Israel out of Eurovision as well?
Absolutely. I think in both cases, Mark, I mean, I appreciate your consistency of position, but in both cases, what we do for Israel is we give them legitimacy by allowing them into these high-profile competitions as if they're a normal state, when in fact, they're a terrorist state. They're beyond any control. Even the US can't control them any longer. They attack whoever they want. They bombed Qatar last week. Actually, they bombed the team from Hamas that are negotiating peace with Israel. That's how much they don't want peace.
Surely that's intemperate language, calling Israel a terrorist state. They've been attacked. Hamas are set out and exist purely to destroy them, and they're defending themselves, the only democracy, Dale Vince, in the Middle East, and you're calling them terrorists.
Well, let me say, it's an apartheid state. I don't think it's a democracy. There are millions of Arab people in that country that don't get to vote. So I don't think that's a democracy. I think terrorist state, absolutely. They're committing terror against millions of people in Palestine, civilians. I mean, they sent thousands of pages armed as bombs into the Lebanon some months ago that found their ways into the hands of nurses and doctors and people like that. And they maimed thousands of people. That was a terrorist attack.
What about Hamas and the hostages? Surely there should be no cessation in Israel's stated aim of wiping out Hamas as long as hostages are held.
I don't think that makes sense. I mean, if you want peace, then you make concessions for peace. Look, the IRA were terrible terrorists to Britain. If you go back a few decades, we didn't bomb Northern Ireland. We didn't starve the population there. And if you want to talk about hostages, be aware that Israel holds 10,000 Palestinians hostage. They call them prisoners. The West calls them prisoners, but they have an equal status. They are hostages. And according to the Israeli army, only 1 in 4 of them are actually fighters.
Israel has a judicial system. It's got checks and balances. It's got a constitution, and it's a democracy. You can't compare that to the innocent folk that were snatched by Hamas in October of 2023.
But you can, if you look at the state of Israeli prisons, the way these people are detained, the nature of them. We're talking women and children. We're talking people starving to death. There is no justice in Israel for Arab people.
They have due process. Like I said, they have a constitution. They have a judiciary which is independent from government. That's a huge difference. So are you not saying that the hostages are a red line?
They're held without judicial process.
So you're making a comparison between people who have been convicted of crimes, very often terror-related, violence-related, who are incarcerated by the Israeli authorities.
No, Mark, they haven't even been charged. These aren't people that are guilty of crimes, have been convicted of crimes, or even charged with crimes. They're just held. It's summary detention is used as a weapon of suppression. Women and children are in detention there, and the army itself says only 1 in 4 of the people in its prisons are connected to fighting.
Now, this feels like a distracting argument, because the bottom line is that people were taken as hostages after that attack in October of 2023. They remain hostages in Gaza. They're often at sensitive military locations. In other words, their own bodies are being weaponized by Hamas. Surely it's a red line that they are released. And at that point, your argument could become rather more compelling than it currently is. Release the hostages, then we talk.
Yeah, I mean, call it a chicken and egg situation. I go back to my point. If you want peace, both sides make concessions. And when you bomb the negotiating team of the other side, you send a very clear signal that you don't want peace at any point.
How can Hamas be in a position to negotiate as long as they're holding hostages?
Well,
how is that a starting point for a cessation of action on the part of Israel and the beginning of talks? It's impossible.
If Israel cared about the condition of those hostages and the families in Israel that are calling for the government to do something for them, if the government of Israel truly cared, they would cease hostilities and negotiate.
And are you not concerned that when the Prime Minister, as expected this weekend, recognises Palestine, that will be perceived as a reward for Hamas's attack, which I reiterate was the single worst attack on Jewish people since the Holocaust?
No, I'm not. I think very few people will see it that way. Palestine is a place that has a right to exist. The Palestinian people have a right to that land. They've lived under siege for some 60 years. They have control of no border, land or sea or air. It is an open prison camp, and the abuse there has been incredible, but we've seen it ramp up in the last 2 years since the Hamas attack to unbelievable levels. What Israel are doing is beyond the pale, and the whole international community should say so. We should throw them out of sport and Eurovision, absolutely, but we should have an immediate trade embargo, at least on the level that we have against Russia. We've had 20 rounds of sanctions against Russia, and it isn't doing anything anywhere near as far bad against the population, the civilian population in Ukraine.
Does history not tell us that we should be very concerned when we witness the slaughter of Jews?
I think we should be very concerned when we witness the slaughter of Arabs, and that's what's happening now. At least 100 people a day. People are being shot in food queues. Children are being sniped in different body parts on different days of the week.
As a result of Hamas weaponising, as a result of Hamas weaponising civilians, why else do they keep armaments in primary schools and hospitals?
No, they're being. No, I don't think you know what you're talking about. With respect, what's happening over there is barbaric against the civilian population by a military superpower. In the Middle East terms, Israel is a superpower.
Are you denying that Hamas are weaponising innocent civilians in order to make life more difficult for the Israelis?
Are you denying that Israel are killing people every day?
Yes, they are killing people every day, including women and children, because Hamas are placing women and children in harm's way.
They're killing them in food queues. Do you not know?
Well, the bottom line is that Hamas are, they've impeded aid coming in. They've made it harder for Gazans to actually escape to safe parts of the country. When Israel began their response to October the 7th, they told everyone in North Gaza to head south.
And then they bombed them.
Well, because Hamas are very, very strategically smart and are quite happy for many thousands of innocent civilians to die in order to make it more difficult for Israel to defend itself, to prosecute this war and to wipe out Hamas. Would you like to see Hamas eliminated, by the way, as a group, given that they are a designated terror organisation?
I want to see a two-state solution. I want to see the end to hostilities and the Palestinian people have their own nation.
So you don't want to see Hamas eliminated, Dale?
What will happen this weekend in the recognition of Palestine will be a really important step towards that happening. But your question is just
well, if you could press a button, if you could press a button and Hamas cease to be an operative force, would you press that button? Would you like to see Hamas eliminated, notwithstanding the casualties that we're seeing at the moment?
I don't want to see anybody eliminated.
So, are you comfortable for Hamas to continue as a political and military force?
This is not an interesting or important question.
Surely the answer is no, Dale. Surely you could argue that you want Palestine to be free, a recognised independent democratic state, but free from Hamas too, a designated terror group, which I can say that on talk because it's not the BBC, so we're allowed to say that.
I have no idea what that rule is about.
No, but I'm surprised, Dale. Look, you're a man of deep conscience, right?
Yes, I am.
You're a very clever man. You're a successful entrepreneur. I'm delighted to have you on the show. You're also brilliant chairman of your football club, right? You've got plenty of fans out there. But I can't believe that you don't want to see the back of Hamas.
I don't think about
Surely that's an easy win. That's an open goal, to use a metaphor. One of your strikers could just easily deal with that one.
Let me answer. I think that I want a situation in Palestine where there is no terrorism on either side, where terrorist organizations cease to exist. I'd like to see a proper legitimate government of Palestine. That won't be Hamas, I'm certain of that. Does that answer your question?
Well, not really, because Hamas, it's in their charter, it's an anti-Semitic charter, which is the destruction of Israel and the implication that they would like to kill all Jews. Therefore, such an ideology and such a platform ought to be eliminated, notwithstanding, as I've said, the human life. And I hear where you're coming from, by the way, because the vast majority of my viewers and listeners are also horrified by what's happening in Gaza. It's a hot mess. It's a humanitarian disaster. It's a tragedy of epic proportions. And with you, I'm in agreement on that. But part of the problem is the poisonous ideology of Hamas that's got to stop. And those horrible thugs cannot be rewarded with statehood for Palestine whilst they are still essentially running the region.
I think you're overlooking the 3 million people that live there when you talk about reward to Hamas. I think also you've implied that Hamas want to kill all Jews because they have anti-Semitic statements in their charter, which I haven't read, and I don't know. Or really,
they don't love the Jews, do they, Hamas, if we're honest?
No. But what about the recent statements of the Israeli government that they intend to occupy all of that land? And actually, the Greater Israel itself extends into the borders of other countries. Are we not seeing an anti-Arab state in Israel, in the Middle East? Can you not see that? Can you not see the violence of the settlers who are taking land from Palestinian people all of the time and killing them? And we've got sanctions against some violent to some extreme right-wing government ministers in Israel. But the government itself, its position is one of taking Palestinian land. They want to drive them out. They want to drive all of the Palestinians out of Palestine. They've said so. And they're going about it like this, with starvation and daily attacks on civilians. I mean, it's a terrible place to be, just a terrible. And we in the West, we are so wrong to sit and watch that and rub our hands together like this and offer some words of condemnation. We need far more than words. We need to be consistent. Look what we did against Russia for its invasion, its illegal invasion of Ukraine and occupation. Israel is doing the same. We should do something about it. Otherwise, we're hypocrites. We've got the biggest double standards in the world. In fact, we have to do something about that, though. And the step of recognizing Palestine will help. We have some talk now in the EU about withdrawing trade cooperation. That's a start, but actually we need to withdraw trade like we have with Russia. We have to punish the Israel economy as we are trying to break the Russian economy quite openly. We have to do the same thing and say you cannot behave like that, and we in the West won't trade with you, we won't let you into our football games, we won't have anything to do with you until you start to behave and follow international law.
Dale, terrific to have you on the show. It's important that we have these open and honest conversations. You've got sincerely held views and thoughts on the matter. I look forward to catching up again soon. My thanks to the owner of Ecotricity, the chairman of Forest Green Rovers, Dale Vince, who would like to see Israel dispatched from international football and Eurovision. Your reaction, I'll try and squeeze a call in if I can, 0344 499 1000. But the best-selling author, Peter Cardwell, is next.
against the October 7th massacre because that was a popular decision on the Palestinian street. And the reason that that barbaric violence was so popular among Palestinians is because they think the world is rewarding them for it. They see countries lining up to recognize a Palestinian state, not as a reward for peace, but as a reward for the October 7th massacre, and they get the message that terrorism works. This step that the UK is about to take will only make Hamas more popular.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
The telephone console at Talk has literally melted following my interview with Dale Vince about Israel. I'm going to get the final word from one of you in just a moment. You're going to have 30 seconds to get your argument ready. But first, I want to spend several minutes on the most exciting publication of the year. It is Political Animals. It's good if I can talk, isn't it? Political Animals, The Secret Life of the Political Pets of Westminster and Washington. It's by the titan of Talk, Peter Cardwell himself. First of all, Peter, congratulations on the publication of this. For those watching on YouTube, let me give it a wave. There is a long and rich and entertaining history about the animals of British politics.
There certainly are. They go back a long time, back to Cardinal Wolsey with Henry VIII, and actually at his statue in Norfolk, the cat is still there, and the cats are still there, the dogs are still there. Dylan the dog for Boris Johnson. Some people say that animals resemble their owners. I think that's a very unfair thing for the slightly, unkempt rescue animal that humped anything that moved and occasionally did things he shouldn't have done in regard to Dylan the dog. We also have Nova with Rishi Sunak, and of course Larry the cat, who's been in Downing Street for a very long time. He's on the 6th Prime Minister and he's 18 years old.
Well, that's right. He's like the Blob, the civil servants, because he works with politicians of all colours, right?
Certainly does, yeah.
There was that great footage of him, which I'm sure features in the book, when he went for a pigeon.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, the pigeon didn't end too well. But interestingly, it's quite nice when you write about it because I connected some of the dots, and actually there was a whole argument in Downing Street about whether to get a cat, whether to get Larry, and actually it was a BBC political correspondent, a guy called Gary O'Donoghue, who was doing a sort of two-way interview on the 10 o'clock news. There was a rat that ran behind him. The footage went viral right around the world, and at that moment Downing Street said, right, we've got to get the cat, we've got to get rid of the rats. Although Larry is not brilliant at being a mouser, it must be said. Some of his predecessors are a bit better, and Palmerston, who was the one in the Foreign Office, well, he is very bloodthirsty and racked up many kills, although he now lives in Bermuda, believe it or not, with the governor of Bermuda. Yes, really.
That's right. He's not the only Brit to escape these shores under the current circumstances. I mean, it's a lovely lens through which to look at our politics and our political history, isn't it?
Yeah, I hope so. And I mean, I think everyone loves animals, and it's interesting with politicians. A lot of people hate politicians, think they're dreadful people. Speaking to, I spoke to Nigel Farage for the book as well. Yeah. He said, he is in some ways a love figure, in some ways a hated figure. He said, look, my animals, when I put stuff of them on TikTok, for example, people love it. It's something we can all agree that we like animals. And actually, from Nigel's perspective, what's interesting, he had that very severe accident. Of course, he nearly died about 15 years ago, and he has to exercise. He got up early in the morning, he goes out and goes with the dogs, has a nice time, and then sort of exercises, and his muscles are all, and that helps him go forward with the day. But he had the most important bit in the book where he said that if Reform UK get to number 10, Larry is staying.
That's so good. I mean, there are lots of books about your political spouse, Dennis Thatcher, Philip May, that kind of thing. Well, actually, it's the dog or cat by your side that's often part of your political story. Political Animals is by Peter Cardwell. It's a must-read. It will be a bestseller. It's out now. As a loyal Talk listener, please grab yourselves a copy. I'll be doing the same thing. Natalie is in London. Natalie, you've got 20 seconds to respond to Dale Vince, who wants to chuck Israel out of Eurovision.
Well, Israel aren't settlers, for one. Hamas are terrorists. They are the ones who are causing humanitarian aid not to get to the Gazans.